Okay, hello everyone. Sorry for being a few minutes late. I see people have already started getting here. So thanks everyone for coming on, and it's great to see everyone. So I'm just going to start doing this as a regular live every week. It'll usually be at this time, maybe an hour off, depending on work and different sorts of things like that. But I will, endeavor to do this on the same day, same roughly time every week, and so we'll see you guys there. Already have a super chat from Nur Jimenez, so thank you very much for that. That's very, very kind of you. There's no question attached, but if you do have a question, do please let me know. And for everyone, put question, just write question and then a colon, and then ask your question so it pops up and I can see it a bit better, because otherwise it's sort of hard to see. But yeah, so I do have a couple questions that people submitted on my my YouTube. I did a post on YouTube for the people that follow me there, and they put some questions in the comments there. So I'll start with those, and in the future, when we're doing these sorts of things, I advertise, and people can try and ask questions there as well. And I will start with those. Let me just bring these up. Hello, everyone. Where's everybody calling in from as well? I always sort of wonder. Everyone, it's so many different times. Some from Chicago, Simi Valley, Seattle. Awesome. That's great. What part of Seattle?
Chicago, Simi Valley, Seattle. Awesome.
That's my own live. That's not what I wanted. Sorry, guys. Tennessee, Nebraska. Awesome. Okay, great. So I'll start with one question. First question came from Christina. And the first question was, she said she doesn't have any health issues, but she has some extra pounds, kilos that she would like to see go. She says, I understand that the right ratio of fat to protein is needed, but what is this? How is this? I don't want to add further weight if possible. It is just so deeply ingrained that fat makes you fat. So I don't want to eat too much. Can you explain how to do it? Do I need to weigh fat versus protein? What about fasting and other things? Thanks. So no, you don't need to weigh things out or measure things, or certainly not count calories, because that's not a good measure or metric for nutrition. But if you are eating intuitively, or if you are eating naturally, you should be able to eat intuitively. Animals in the wild, they just eat intuitively. They eat what they're hungry for. They eat what they want to eat, and that seems to be fine for them. And that's what you would expect to see in nature, because you can't, they don't have textbooks in universities to indoctrinate people and tell them to eat all the wrong things. They just eat naturally. You just have to eat what you or feel like eating. So if you're eating what you're supposed to eat, then you can just eat naturally. So what we're supposed to eat is fatty meat. If you're eating too lean meat and you're not eating anything else, that can actually be a problem. If you're getting more than, I think the number I've seen was about 4.5 grams per kilogram of protein. If you start getting that, then that is when you start having problems. So you really want to have more fat than that. So generally, when you get a majority of your calories, nutrition, energy from protein, that's when you start having a bit of a concern. Otherwise, protein is absolutely not bad for you in any way, shape, or form. It's just when it's the highest proportion of calories, then you could start having a problem. So if you really think you're just not getting enough, then you might want to measure it out. Say, okay, how much am I getting? But if you're just getting fatty cuts, it's visibly fat, maybe it lean meat stops tasting good pretty quickly, and you might still be hungry. And that's actually a symptom of this. It's called rabbit starvation, where someone's eating so much lean meat, but they're starving and they need to eat, but they're not really getting what they need from the rabbit, which doesn't have much fat on it. So so you should, if you're just eating visibly fatty meat, and if it doesn't taste as good, if it tastes better with a bit of fat or a bit of butter on it, add a bit of butter, add a bit of fat. Generally, you can shoot for about 1 gram of fat per 1 gram of protein. That's about 70% calories from fat, if you want to go by that metric, which I don't think is as very useful, but that's what it ends up being. And if you're just eating naturally, your body will tell you, and the thing is that fat is not just a calorie source, or it's not just an energy source. It is a nutrient. It is an essential nutrient. You have to have it, and you have to have the things that come with it. There are essential fatty acids, there are essential fat-soluble vitamins, and cholesterol. All these things come with it, and they're absolutely vital. So you need to eat those along with it. If you are limiting that, you are signaling your body that you just don't have the resources available, and that you need to trim sails and survive a famine, right? So what does that mean? That means you're going to store and cling on to fat, as opposed to ramping up your metabolism and utilizing fat. This is why people yo-yo diet. They'll starve themselves. Their metabolism will go low, and they go back to eating the same thing that they were eating before, that took years for them to put on all this weight. But now their metabolism is so suppressed that they slam back on the weight, right? And so that's because their body is looking at it going, we need to store this, we need to conserve this, or we're going to die. We need to survive a famine or hibernation or whatever reason that we're not able to get enough food and nutrition. And that's what you're telling yourself. You're either telling yourself that you have enough nutrients and your body can ramp up your metabolism, or you're telling them that it's not. Your body is very fiscally conservative, to use an economic model. When you start going into debt and money starts becoming short, if you lose your job or you get your hours cut or something like that, the appropriate thing to do is not deficit spending like every idiot government does. It's to stop spending so much, right? You don't have as much coming in, you can't put as much out, right? And that's what your body's going to do. Your body's not going to be an idiot and deficit spend, because you die. That the organism will die. You start ramping up your metabolism when you have less nutrients and nutrition coming in, you're going to die. The law of the land in nature is one of scarcity and fighting for survival and fighting for resources. And so if your body can't weather a famine, you're dead. Your species dead, right? So the only species that are around now, including ours, are ones that are fully adapted to that. So you can't just tell your body, you don't have upper control to say, no, I'm just trying to fit into a really nice dress that I bought. Your body's just getting one signal, and it's gonna respond accordingly, right? So you just need to eat enough, and you will lose weight, and you will lose fat. You want to work out as well if you can, but you don't have to. But the main thing that people stall on is if they're not fully invested in, they're not 100% just eating meat and fat, so maybe they're drinking alcohol, maybe even once a month. That'll slow you down. Maybe you're having artificial sweeteners. That will slow you down, and it will help mess up with your health, mess your health up as well. And maybe you're having a lot of dairy. Dairy is a big stall for people as well. So if you're having a stall and you don't think you're losing fat, because you can put on muscle and lose fat and not lose weight, right? So that's not a good metric. But if you don't think you're losing fat, then look at all these other things. Maybe you were losing fat before, maybe you're not now. The only stalls come from just eating or drinking the wrong things, putting the wrong things in your body, and also not giving it enough time. So as long as you're just eating fatty meat and water and eating to satiety, you should be fine. So that's what I would do. You can sort of aim for gram fat and protein, or you can just eat fatty meat that tastes good until it stops tasting good. And that's what I would do. If you come to the end of the meal and you think, man, that was really good, until the last bite, you're still hungry, you should eat more. You should make another steak. And that's what I would do. So we did have a question from Nur Jimenez, who had the super chat. So I'll pop to that here. So good day, doc, or hi, doc. Good day. Just a little dyslexic this morning. Is it normal to experience indigestion and or diarrhea when starting a high-fat carnivore for a diabetic 58-year-old woman? Shall I abstain from taking supplements right now? Well, it depends on the supplements. You certainly shouldn't stop taking your diabetes medication or any other prescribed medication until it's actually important. It's actually required to. So if you're taking medication that will lower your blood sugar or blood pressure or whatever, and you're still at normal levels, you should stay on those things. If those start coming down to subnormal levels, that's when you start talking to your doctor about, hey, maybe I should, I'm dieting, exercising, and do all these sorts of things. Maybe I need to lighten up on the medications, and they can help you with that. They should help you with that. That's important to have them involved. As far as indigestion and diarrhea, yeah, that's something that can happen for a number of different reasons. If you are only eating meat and fat, only drinking water, then it could be that you're eating more fat than your body can absorb right now. Sometimes that our capacity for absorbing fat will go up, ostensibly because we start making more bile, because we're triggering our body saying, hey, we actually have a good regular supply of fat now. And, and so we can absorb more now. But most commonly, what people that are experiencing diarrhea and indigestion is because they're eating a lot more meat and a lot more fatty meat and a lot less of all the other things, but they're still including some things, maybe, some vegetables, some fiber, but really more commonly coffee. A lot of people still drink coffee and tea. Both of those are laxatives, right? And maybe they're using artificial sweeteners, usually in the coffee and tea, right? Those are also laxatives. Stevia, erythritol, certainly xylitol, sorbitol, all the sugar alcohols, even ones that are natural. I mean, what's natural? Arsenic's natural. That doesn't mean that it's good for you. Plants are natural. 99.9% of them will kill you if you eat them, right? So the so-called natural sugar is a natural sweetener as well, right? And we're avoiding that. So if you are using any sort of artificial sweeteners, I would stop those immediately. If you are drinking any coffee or tea, I would stop those immediately. And then if you are only eating meat, only drinking water, and you're still getting, indigestion or loose stools, it could be that you're eating more fat, or more particularly rendered fat, like adding tallow or sometimes butter. And, dairy can cause GI issues for some people as well. And some people have a bit more of a problem with rendered fat. So it's liquid and it can just sort of go through you a bit faster. Whereas the cellular fat that's in the tissue of the animal, right, in the meat that you're eating, that's trapped up in cells, you're chewing that up, it's sort of squishing, breaking up those cells, your stomach acid's breaking them down, all the different, pepsin and lipase and all these sorts of things are starting to work on those as well. And it just takes it's like a slow release capsule, right? And so the fat is released a bit more slowly, and then our body's able to absorb that a bit better. That's sort of how I think about it. I don't have any studies or anything like that to talk about it. It's just thinking about it from a physiological standpoint and anatomical standpoint. I think that's likely what's happening, and that's what we see in practice, is that some people doing everything else right will have a problem. Even if they're reducing the amount of fat, they still have just problem with indigestion and diarrhea with rendered fat. And so my advice to them would be just eat the fat that's in the meat itself. Some people actually, it's only a handful of people so far, but some people still would have issues. And then they started cutting off the fat off the meat and just eating that uncooked. Sort of tastes a bit waxy. It doesn't taste bad though. And yeah, I mean, it's better. I like it cooked better, but it doesn't taste bad anyway. And that seems to be better. So for whatever reason, that seems to resolve that for the handful of people that all the other things didn't help with. So that's what I would suggest there. Okay. All right. And if people have other sorts of questions, do pop them up. Obviously, it's easier to see super chats, but that's not required. I'll try to answer everyone's question either way. Okay, so here's a classic one. So what do I say to people that swear I'm going to get scurvy? Well, ask them how long it's going to take and put a time limit on it and say, okay, I'll see you in that X amount of time, right? Usually it's about 3 months. And then you will, if you are actually deficient in your ability to make collagen, you'll get scurvy within 3 months. And so you just say, okay, well, how long? How long will it take until I get scurvy then? And they'll say whatever they say. They'll probably say they have no idea. But let's say they say a number and say, okay, I'll see you then. and we'll see who's right. That's the easiest way to do it. But no, you can refer them to, I haven't done a specific video just on vitamin C, but other people have, but I've spoken about it in other videos, in many videos. But depending on what you eat, you need a different constellation of nutrients. And so if you're eating a bunch of plants, you actually need different nutrients because there are anti-nutrients in plants that stop you from being able to use, utilize, absorb the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc., even proteins and fats that we need to absorb and use. And one of those is vitamin C as well. So when you're eating carbohydrates use a GLUT4 transporter to get into your system, be utilized around your body. Same transporter is used for vitamin C. Vitamin C actually looks like a little fructose molecule with a little tail on it, right? And so, it actually has a similar shape and chemical nature in certain parts of the molecule, so they are able to come through the same GLUT4 receptor. When you're eating a bunch of carbohydrates, that drowns out the vitamin C, and so you need an overabundance of vitamin C in order to absorb the little that you need, and you really only need a little. And in fact, what is going to cause scurvy, right? Scurvy is going to be caused from not being able to make proper collagen, and vitamin C helps hydrolyze proline and lysine to make properly formed collagen structures. But when you're eating a lot of meat, you don't need vitamin C to hydrolyze those amino acids because they're already hydrolyzed. You're already eating collagen. You're eating those pre-hydrolyzed amino acids, so you don't actually need it, right? Not for scurvy anyway. You do need some vitamin C for other things, but it's very, very little, and it's even less when you're not eating carbohydrates, and it's even less when you're not when you're eating meat. Think about the Vikings, right? First of all, the limeys, right? They say, oh well, they ate a bunch of citrus because they were getting scurvy. Great. What were they feeding their people? A bunch of gruel and grog and stuff like that. The officers ate meat. The officers did not get scurvy. It was the sailors themselves. And this was something that American sailors actually just didn't believe. They just didn't buy that they were getting this. They're like, yeah, you guys are full of it. It's something else, right? Because they weren't seeing the same things because they were feeding their sailors better. And look at the Vikings and things like that. They sailed all over the world. They sailed to the New World. Leif Erikson is thought to have made it to North America, and what was it, the 1100 AD, around that time, right? So around the time of like Norman invasion. So it's a long time ago, and they were not bringing a bunch of lemons and limes. They had packed barrels full of salted meat, right? They didn't get scurvy, right? So same thing there. So it's physiologically different. So you can explain that to them, and that can be interesting. Might be if they're that type of person, they're actually interested in a real answer, then that's the real answer. But if they're just, a bit combative, then, just tell me like, okay, how long will it take for me to get scurvy? Great. I'll see you then. We'll see if I have scurvy. And, as I say a lot, because I think it really matters, and people should use this more in their daily life, which is the quote from the physicist Richard Feynman, when he said, "It doesn't matter how brilliant your theory is, and it doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong." Okay, so they're saying if you're only eating meat, then you will get scurvy in 3 months. Great. See how many then in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 6 years. No scurvy. Okay, they're wrong. That theory is wrong. It doesn't matter how smart they are. It doesn't matter how nice they are. They're wrong. Okay. So I have a couple of super chats here from Jeff. Thank you so much for that, Jeff. I really appreciate that. And from Mooster. And remember, guys, if you have a question, write question and then colon and then your question after it. So write out the word question, colon, right? 2 dots, and then write out your question, because that pops up for me. I can actually see that in the chats. And super chats work as well. Those are obviously easier, but you don't have to, but remember to put the question in. It makes it much more easy to see. So question from Mooster. Hello, I do a lot of longer endurance cycling and fast rides. Will carnivore eating work for my cycling? Sunday, my longer rides are about 4 hours, and 20 miles per hour average speed. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a long distance elite athlete named Sean Sako. He goes by Sako, Sako. Sakanowski. Gosh, I'm just butchered his last name, I'm sure, but he's on my YouTube channel. We have an interview together where we talk about what he's doing. He's doing carnivore. He's been keto for a long time. He works with Professor Tim Noakes down in South Africa, who's a big proponent of keto training as an athlete. He thinks that's better. He's one of the top, exercise, medicine doctors, sports physiologists in the world, has been for decades. He's a professor in the area for decades. And he was all about, you got to carb load, you got to carb load, you got to carb load. Then he went, oh my God, I'm wrong. And I've been lying to people for 30 years. Obviously he wasn't lying. He just, was, he thought one thing, and then he found evidence to the contrary. And as an honest scientist, doctor, and someone who actually is trying to help people instead of trying to help himself, he admitted that and went, oh, hey guys, I think I got this wrong. And I think it's over here now. Now he's doing a lot of work showing that. So you can look into that. You can also look into Professor Peter Brunkner, who's down in Australia. He's again another sports medicine doctor, exercise physiologist, and one of the top in the world. He's worked with actually the Australian cricket national team in Australia, and apparently they were getting thumped by at 1 year. He got them on a low carb program. And they just came back and just started slamming other teams and started, they went sort of 0-5. They just lost this massive, 5 days in a row of the test matches against England. And then 6 months later, they beat England 5-0, right? So massive swing. And the difference was that Professor Brunkner got them on ketogenic diet. So you can watch Sean Sako's interview. He's a cyclist. He's doing 200K rides and things like that. He's 50 years old, so he's not like in the prime of youth, and he's coming up in the top 5 of these high level endurance cyclists and things like that. And he rides fasted. He doesn't eat before, and he doesn't have to refuel. All these other guys are dying. They're, oh my God, and they're just sucking down these sugar packets to try to recover and keep going, which is just miserable. It just sounds awful. And he doesn't. He's just drinking water and just going, and he feels good, solid the whole way through. So I do a video with Richard Smith. Goes by Keto Pro, and that one was recent, and that was the science behind. Well, I'll look it up for you. Let me just take a look. That one was called "The Science Behind Shredding Fat and Building Muscle," and Richard does a great presentation there about the physiology on why it's actually an advantage to not eat carbohydrates when you're training, especially when you're, doing endurance training and things like that. Professor Brunkner's also worked with other teams around here. There are other teams, the New Zealand All Blacks, right? The most dominant rugby teams in history. They've been low carb for the last few years now. Right. So, and that's like they need more advantages, these guys. I mean, I'm trying to get that, in other sorts of, USA, leagues and things like that, and teams, and, God forbid the national team, that would be great. But the All Blacks have done it, and they're performing at massive, capacities. And there's another team I was just speaking with, Dr. Gary Fetke, and he rattled off a number of professional teams and professional players that were doing low carb carnivore sort of things, and their improvement just went crazy. There was a guy from Melbourne, I can't remember his name, but anyway, he was a premier level international top athlete. I forget the sport, but he was basically coming to the end of his career. He went low carb carnivore-ish sort of thing, but at least no carb. And it revitalized his career. He's back at the top, and he played like another 10 years or several years of high level international grade sports, right? And that was because he dropped the carbs. It's crazy. So, there's a lot of science behind this, but yeah, it's absolutely, it is the biggest advantage that no one is taking advantage of. And, even just going carnivore, like you will see your testosterone go up by 50 to 100%, right? Your growth hormone will increase by nearly the same. The growth hormone action and function will increase as well, because when you're eating carbohydrates and your insulin goes up, insulin is a major keystone hormone. It affects so many other hormones. One of them is growth hormone. Insulin suppresses the secretion and action of growth hormone. So if you're eating a bunch of carbs, your insulin's going to stay up. That's going to suppress your body from making growth hormone. Men secrete growth hormone, a bit of growth hormone every 60 minutes, women every 90 minutes. And then after you go to sleep, you get your biggest doses of growth hormone. If your insulin is up, you are suppressing that secretion. But what little comes out is now being curtailed as well, because the action of growth hormone is being blocked by insulin as well, right? So, people, we know about the Liver King, and he was taking $11,000 a month US in growth hormone supplementation, and he was saying, but my IGF-1 is not physiological. Like, what the hell's going on? It's not even up in that good range. It's like, what's going on? Well, my guess would be that you're drinking maple syrup like a jackass, and that's completely blocking the function of this extremely expensive growth hormone that you're taking. And it's messing up your hormones in a lot of other ways as well. So, eating a bunch of red meat is going to have carnitine in it, right? Carnitine has been shown to increase your testosterone receptors, right? So your testosterone levels are going to go up for most people, and your receptors are going to go up as well, right? So the action of that testosterone is going to increase dramatically, as will your growth hormone. And it also brings down your cortisol, right? So this is extremely beneficial. This is just athletics 101. Like, you want your hormones up, and you want your cortisol down. You want your testosterone growth hormone up. You want your cortisol down, right? And so, not down and out, but just normal and physiological, not too elevated. So it's a massive gain for people. Ryan Talbot, NCAA All-American decathlete, AA Division I decathlete, 2 years in a row. Big Ten champion last year, came in second in the Big Ten decathlon this year. He's putting up, he set the school record for the decathlon last year, and when he won the Big Ten. And he got All-American honors 2 years in a row. He checked his bloods with his, the team doctor, and he was just like, hey, I'm just not really feeling great. Can we check me out? This is before he went carnivore. And all his bloods were in the normal ranges. Testosterone was like, 750 or something like that. And they're like, well, all your numbers are good. There's nothing wrong. So, you're fine. And he said, well, I'm not fine. I don't feel fine. So, something else is going on. And so he found carnivore, and he tried that out. And I was speaking to him. He said that in that video, and he said that, his testosterone was around something like 750, something around there. And then 1 year later, it was up to 1150, right? So it was massive 500-point jump. Some people don't even have a testosterone of 500, right? So their entire body's worth of testosterone, he increased on top of his already good level of testosterone, right? And so free testosterone, right? So, that's massive. That's massive. That's a massive boost, and it's going to be a massive boost to an athlete going forward. And his testosterone went up so much that the team doctor was like, oh, well, yeah, that's a big jump. That might raise some eyebrows with the NCAA. What do you know? He got randomly drug tested the next week, and of course, was fine. There was no issues there. So it was 100% natural and physiological, and you can test that with your other hormones, right? So you're luteinizing hormone and other sorts of hormones in your hypothalamus, pituitary, testicular axis. You can see if these are all in proportion, right? Because if your testosterone up and all other secreting hormones are massively suppressed, that means you're getting something from the outside, right? But if all those things are just in perfect balance, that's your body doing it. So, and his body was doing it. So it makes a massive difference. I know I took a bit longer on that question, but I think it's a really important one. I mean, this is something that I saw firsthand, as an athlete in my early 20s. I was just absolutely the most physically dominant person on any team I played on. I wasn't always the biggest guy. In fact, I rarely was. But no one played more physically than I did. No one was in better shape than I was. No one could push themselves harder than I could, and just flat out, no one did. And and playing against people and on against other teams and things like that, I was always more physically dominant, and a lot of that had to do with me not being a very happy young man for a lot of different reasons, and having a lot of my anger was put out onto the field, and to other people's chagrin. But that was something that I needed as an outlet, and also because I worked my ass off and I was on this diet. So all those things all together combined into being a very, very dominant athlete. And then after that, still not a very happy young man, and still working really, really hard. It wasn't the same. I was still very good, and I was still pretty dominant. I was not just the defensive force of nature that I was before that, because I wasn't able to perform at the exact same level. I could still perform at the top levels, but it wasn't the same. And I was just thinking, I was like, well, I'm in my mid late 20s now. I guess that's just how it goes. Your body just starts slowing down. No, because then my late 30s, when I came back onto this, all of a sudden, bam, I'm back there feeling as physically dominant as I did when I was 22. And I could push myself just as hard, and I could just keep going. I'm like, well, people are in trouble now. And I just have problems with my knee, and it just swells up whenever I, sprint and run and things like that. And so I'm still trying to work on that and try to rehab that to the point that it won't do that. But it's, not for lack of, anything else in my body. My body feels amazing, and I'm, 2 decades older. Right. So, this is a massive, massive advantage to any athlete, and any young athlete coming up. People say, a lot of people come to carnivore because, they have a lot of health issues, and they're trying to reverse very serious medical conditions or lose a lot of weight. And that's great. And you're going to see very good results. But this is so important, for developing people, because you're going to develop better than you ever would otherwise, but also to athletes and just people that are trying to be feel as good physically as they can growing up. Right. If you're a young athlete, a lot of people are tempted to do steroids and other sorts of horrible things that are just terrible for your body, because they really, really are passionate about sports, and they really want to make a college team, or they want to make a professional team. This is your ticket to having an advantage on everyone else. Right. Now you have to put in the hard work, though, because it doesn't matter. You can stick all the steroids in your ass that you want. If you're not putting in the hard work, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter. You're not going to build muscle. You're not going to build athleticism. You're not going to get in better shape. Maybe a little, but not really. You need to stimulate your body, but having proper nutrition, you're going to be stimulating all of those things without working out. And then when you work out, it's just going to be next level. It's going to be absolutely next level. So, this is a huge advantage to anyone who wants to excel and be the best that they can at any sport, at any intellectual endeavor either, because it makes your brain work better too. It makes you more intelligent, makes your brain develop better, so that you are more intelligent for the rest of your life. Right. So this is such a massive, massive advantage to young people, especially, that are looking to make something and make a name for themselves in athletics or anything, certainly in academics as well. So sorry for the rant. Hopefully that was helpful. Another super chat from PB Jet. Thank you very much for that. And from Casey Smith, thank you again for the for the super chat. 36-year-old male, 2 months carnivore, down 30 pounds. Awesome. That's great. Confirmed genetic hemochromatosis, and doctor said it looks like I might have polycythemia and could need to take chemo. Ooh, okay. If I do have poly. Is a chemo thing a must do, or can diet possibly fix it? Well, possibly. I don't know of any studies or anything like that. I haven't spoken to anyone that I can think of that has had polycythemia and fixed it on carnivore. But just as a general sort of rule of thumb, if you're eating what you're supposed to eat, your body will work the way it's supposed to work. And a lot of these issues, genetic or otherwise, come about because we're eating the wrong things and we're exposing ourselves to the wrong things. And then we have this genetic abnormality and this genetic predisposition that when things aren't just right, they start going off the rails. Now they can go off the rails otherwise. There's not everything's fixed by diet. Not everything is a direct result of diet, but a lot of things are. And so, I would keep an eye on that. But if it starts progressing to the point, even past just red meat, fatty red meat and water and nothing else, no coffee, no artificial sweeteners, nothing, just fatty red meat, water, eating to satiety, and that's it. Getting proper sleep, doing all the other things to make sure that your health is in order. Then and it's progressing past that. Well, then yes, I think that there is absolutely a role for medicine and medication as well. But I certainly think it's well worth a shot to see how that goes and see how you do, because there are a number of things that improve dramatically with these dietary changes. And sometimes people don't need to have all those things. A lot of people are coming off medication as they're coming away from these different treatments. I mean, even fixing arthritis and things like that. That was something I was talking with Dr. Fetke about yesterday. I'll be posting that in the next couple of weeks. Brilliant guy. He's the orthopedic surgeon. He's been doing low carb sort of medicine for well over a decade. Got into trouble because he was curing his diabetic patients. So he was doing amputations on them, or losing legs and feet and things like that. And he was just like, hey, if you just stop eating carbs, you won't need to get an amputation. Well, lo and behold, he was right. And that pissed off some people that were heavily being funded by the sugar companies and things like that. And he was actually on a hit list for the sugar companies like Coca-Cola and things like that. They actually have the minutes of their meetings talking about how, hey, there are these, our sales are going down because these people are making noise about low carb. We need to target these doctors, like Tim Noakes, like Gary Fetke, and others around the world. So there was a short list of people that they tried to trash, and he was one of them, but he won, which is awesome. That was David versus Goliath on that one, because the medical board and all the powers that be throughout Australia, they tried to take him down and ruin his life. But he won, and he paved the way for other doctors, especially in Australia, to use this, because now it's in the protocol. Now it's in the guidelines for treating diabetes is low carb diets. So that's huge. That was a huge win. So I would see how you go and do it perfectly. Right. So get out in the sun, get out in the air, work out, lift weights. Lifting weights is much better. Anaerobic exercise, much better. Lifting weights and sprinting are the preferred exercises, but just doing things, just being active is very important. And just eating only red meat, fatty red meat, only drinking water, eating and drinking to satiety. I would do that and see how you go. And hopefully you won't need anything past that. But if you do, you'll be in a lot better position to do well with it, and probably not need as much, if anything. But I don't know. I would hold out hope that you probably won't need it. But if you do, there is a role for traditional medicines as well. But see how you go. And please let me know what happens there, because I'd be very interested to see how you go with that. So super chat from Zen X. Thank you very much for that. Can Crohn's be healed with carnivore on night shift? Well, I don't know what night shift has to do with it, but yeah, it definitely can. So, I mean, there are even studies in the literature talking about how diet plays a massive role in Crohn's disease in particular. So there's a study looking at Crohn's disease, putting people on an elemental diet. So if you go on an elemental diet is it's highly processed. It's just a powdered drink form, but it's all the micro macronutrients that you need, nothing that you don't need, right? And just putting somebody on that diet is a better treatment to get people out of an acute flare-up of Crohn's than prednisone or prednisolone, so steroids, right? Which is the gold standard. That's just going to suppress your immune system, mess you up in a lot of other ways, but it's going to get that job done. Just not eating stupid crap is a better treatment than steroids. That's impressive. And so, what is an elemental diet? What are just the macros and only the micros and nothing else you don't want? A steak, a fatty steak, and you'll get everything that you need. In fact, the elemental diet probably doesn't have all the micronutrients that you need. There was something I saw from Dr. Baker said it was estimated about 50,000 different micronutrients that exist in steak, and most of which we don't even have names for, right? And so you need to eat steak. And so if you eat steak and water, red meat and water, if you have autoimmune, this is very important for people listening with autoimmune issues. If you have an autoimmune condition, you will do so much better on pure red meat, fatty red meat and water, nothing else, not even pork, chicken, fish, dairy, eggs. Probably because, what it has to do with what the animals are being fed. They're being fed a bunch of, high octane garbage, and that's getting into their body. They're being fed a bunch of, seed oils and linoleic acid. That's getting into their fat. They've got a bunch of omega-6s and linoleic acid and all these, and these other sorts of seed oils building up in their tissue. Then we're eating their tissue and we're getting that crap by proxy. So, it's not what you want. But so people do much, much, much better with autoimmune issues if they're on a pure red meat and water diet and nothing else, no coffee, no tea, nothing. So it's certainly no fiber. That stuff's horrible. There was another study as well with Crohn's. I think it was around 50 or 60 patients, humans, and it was an interventional trial. So they put them on, they took them off carbohydrates and fiber. What's left when you're not eating carbohydrates and fiber, right? So like spinach doesn't have carbohydrates, but it has fiber, right? So, all these different, vegetables and things like that, they're going to have fiber even if they don't have carbohydrates. Really just meat left, right? So they're taking away carbs and fiber and taking them off medications and seeing how long can these people go without medication. There was something that made it up to 51 months. So in full remission without any medications with Crohn's, just taking away carbs and fiber, right? And contrast that with the control that didn't take away carbs and fiber. They stayed in remission on average 0 months, right? Not a lot of months. So what does that mean? That means there's something in the carbs and fiber, or the things that come along with the carbs and fiber, that are causing Crohn's disease. So really what Crohn's is and what other autoimmune issues are is our body responding negatively to eating something or being exposed to something that we're not supposed to be exposed to, and our body's reacting pathologically, right? You get rid of that exposure, it goes away, just like an elemental diet, just like in getting rid of the carbs and fiber. You get rid of the exposure and the problem goes away, just like lead poisoning. You get rid of the lead pipes, you don't have lead poisoning anymore, right? Or you're not going to, or it won't build up. It will get out of your system and you won't get it in the future. Same thing with 90% of the diseases out there, all the chronic diseases and things like that. I think all of these are exposures. All of these are our body. We're being exposed to something and our body is being poisoned. We're getting poison in our body and our body's responding in a way that's bad. And we're calling it a disease, but really what it is a poisoning. And you could call lead poisoning a disease. And for a long time, people did. They didn't really know what the hell was going on. That wasn't described until much more recently, that what lead poisoning was, and that it wasn't someone getting sick about something. It was like, this is a toxic exposure. Well, we need to understand that's what Crohn's is, what diabetes is, what heart disease is, what cancer is in many cases, and all the other, so-called chronic diseases, high blood pressure for the most part. So many things, erectile dysfunction, hair loss, all these sorts of things. A lot of these come from exposure, toxic exposure. So yes, and night shift, if you're not sleeping right and you're on shift work, that can mess with your immune system and things like that. So just make sure that you're getting high quality sleep as much as possible. Wear an eye mask, take melatonin, things like that, and should be right. But your diet anyway, that will at least do that part, and then the other things may not be as ideal, but do the best you can. Thank you very much, Sherry, for the super chat. My brother is on dialysis three days a week. Do you think it would be safe for him to try carnivore? No one ever addresses keto carnivore for dialysis patients. The diet they give him is horrible. I bet it is. So yeah, no, look, whether he has functional kidneys or not, he's still a human being. And so, the right diet for any human being is, our biologically appropriate, adapted, designed diet, which I think all the best evidence shows is a carnivore diet, a high-fat carnivore diet. And there are studies showing that increased protein intake actually improves kidney function. Is that going to improve someone who doesn't have any kidney function and is on dialysis? Possibly not. It's very hard to tell. I have seen, anecdotally, I've seen 3 cases now of people who have, said, I didn't confirm, I didn't go down to their dialysis clinic, but they've told me, and I've seen them and spoke to them online, that they were able to come off dialysis. One in about 9 months, the other ones took a little over a year, but they started making urine again, which is crazy. And so even in those 3 cases, that's miraculous, right? I can't say that that's going to happen for anybody else. It may be that their kidneys had just enough life left in them that they were able to sort of revitalize. So I can't say that's going to be the same for your brother. I can say that it's going to be better for him and beneficial to him in many, many other ways. And it's not going to make him worse anyway, because how could it, right? It's not going to, you can't take your kidney function below 0, right? So he already doesn't have functioning kidneys. He's already on dialysis. Horse is out of the barn. Might as well give it a shot. And I guarantee you, he'll feel a lot better in so many other ways. And I can't say it's going to improve his kidney function, because I've only seen it happen 3 times. So God knows what's going to happen there, but it's going to improve his health in a number of other ways. So, I very much think that it is safe beyond a shadow of a doubt, in my mind anyway. And I know many, many people who I've spoken to and just helped, just with advice and things like that, who have gone carnivore on dialysis, and they feel better and better and better and better and better. And hopefully they are able to improve and get their kidney function back a bit. If their kidneys are completely shot, then probably won't. But we'll see. But in any case, their health does improve in many other respects. So I don't think for a second it would be unsafe for him, because he's still a human. And so, a proper human diet is still going to be appropriate for him. Hope that helps. Thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. Hey, Doc, currently going through my 2nd relapse of acute transverse myelitis. Would carnivore help with the severity or amount of time before relapses? That's an excellent question. My guess would be yes. I haven't spoken to anybody. I haven't seen anybody. I don't know of any studies, unlike the Crohn's patients that with transverse myelitis. But if this is happening in sort of the same sort of autoimmune sort of functionality, it's been a long time since I looked at acute transverse myelitis. But if that is a sort of a similar pathway, your body's attacking something, making antibodies towards that something, and then you're having a bit of a cross reaction with the rest of your body, then eliminating those things out of your system is going to improve that, because you're not going to be making antibodies, or the antibodies are going to reduce and reduce and reduce until you're not really making much of any, if any, after a certain amount of time, when you've eliminated out those things from your diet. And so it could very well help with that, as it does with every other autoimmune issue that I've ever seen. It also optimizes your immune system in a number of other ways. Even just sugar. There was a study I was speaking to Dr. Fetke. I didn't get him to talk about this, but I've seen in some of his other talks, he referenced a study back in the 1970s just with sugar, and I think in particular sugar or fructose in particular, maybe it was just sugar, and within just immediately after eating sugar, the immune system was suppressed for over 5 hours. Right. So, it's really bad for you to eat sugar and to eat carbohydrates and these sorts of things. They suppress your immune system. And so just being in a state of ketosis is actually better for your immune system. It works in a much more healthy manner and respect. And so I think it probably will help. I can't say for sure. I've never seen, I don't know of any studies on transverse myelitis and keto. Doesn't mean they don't exist. There are literally thousands out there. So you could go to Google Scholar, or if you have access to, PubMed and, all the different, Cochrane, sort of libraries, look up the different studies on those databases. You might just look in, transverse myelitis, ketosis, ketogenic diet, or fasting mimicking diet. That's another one, because people say, oh my God, keto, oh, that's so bad for you. So they say, well, it's really good for fasting. Fasting helps in these ways. And, but, fasting can be uncomfortable. It's not really pleasant for people to do it. But what about a fasting mimicking diet? What about a diet that mimics the biochemical state that we would see when we're fasting? Ketogenic diet. And what does that do? Well, lo and behold, it works just as well. And in fact, better in a lot of cases as well. So you could look for that and see if there's anything on there. Carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet, or I think it should be. I think it's best if it is, and you're not taking in carbohydrates as well. And so you can obviously, if a ketogenic diet is helping that, and you're on a keto carnivore diet, then you should expect similar results as well, and probably better results on a carnivore diet, because you're eliminating out so many other things that are not good for you. So I hope that helps. And also just you can also try it and just see. And if it works, then it works. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter if it works for anyone else. It works for you. And let me know, because I would be very interested in hearing that result as well. Another super chat from WPB Jet. Thank you very much for that. This time it has a question, which is good. Will phosphatidylcholine help with high CAC score? I'm not sure, actually. That's not something I'm really aware of one way or the other, unfortunately. I'm not a cardiologist, so that's not something I treat on a daily basis. What I deal with CAC scores are just, I know and understand that statins increase the CAC score. People are put on statins because their CAC score goes up, and then all of a sudden it goes up even more. Oh, no, that's a good thing. That's the statin stabilizing the plaque. Well, weren't they already stabilized? They were already calcified. So it's a bit of circular well, it's not even logic. It's not even circular logic. It's just not logic. And it's just contradictory. But and people's CAC scores coming down on a carnivore diet or a keto diet. That's basically where I stand with my knowledge of CAC scores. But I don't unfortunately know about IV phosphatidylcholine. I have no idea, unfortunately. But you could probably ask your doctor or your cardiologist. I don't know if that's something that they recommended or just something you sort of saw people talking about. But I think the best thing you can do is go on a proper diet, a proper carnivore, high fat, red meat based diet, cutting out all the garbage and artificial sweeteners, certainly seed oils and sugars and things like that, carbohydrates, and you should see that improve. A lot of people do, and there are people seeing, in their own lives that their arterial plaques are actually going down, and they're getting reperfusion of different areas that were starting to get blocked up. So that's huge, and that's really important. And so that's the main thing that I would do, is I would focus on things that you have control over, which is your diet, what you put in your body. No one gets to force you to eat one way or the other outside of extreme conditions. And so, that's something that you can control. That's something that you have power over. And so that's what I would do first and foremost, and then work with your doctor if they think that other sorts of interventions like that would be of help. So super chat from Adam. Thank you very much for that. How to raise HDL levels after a month following carnivore diet, where levels have dropped to 45. So you just you need to give this stuff time. So this is, a month is probably not long enough. There are other things that will affect HDL as well, going up and down. 45 is still good. All right. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Also, you want to look at this in context as well with your triglycerides. If your triglycerides are going up and your HDL is going down, you're eating something that's not agreeing with you, that you shouldn't be. So, are you strict carnivore? Are you only eating red meat and water? Are you eating, soy and corn-fed pork that's high in linoleic acid and omega-6s. I would stop those immediately. Dairy and things like that. All these other things, they shouldn't raise your triglycerides and lower your HDL. But if there's nothing else going on, just eliminate the variables and just go down to just red meat and water. And also give it a bit more time, give it sort of 3 to 6 months and see what's going on there. Because there can be a lot of fluctuations up and down, especially early on. And so I would just give it a bit of time. What HDL is really showing you, and what triglycerides are really showing you, is whether you have pattern A or pattern B LDL cholesterol. If you're getting the small dense LDL particles, or you're getting the large buoyant LDL particles, which are good. Large buoyant's good, small dense not great, or at least associated with bad things. Only association. There's no causation between SD-LDL and anything. Only associations. But there are associations. And so, whatever's causing the SD-LDL, I think that's probably smoke rather than the fire. Maybe these things are, causing some harm, but I think more likely they're being caused by things that are causing harm in other respects as well. So they're a marker, but not necessarily the cause of disease. So higher LDL, lower triglycerides mean that it's much more likely that you have the predominantly large buoyant LDL, and less, if any, of the SD-LDL, which is great. Even if you have low HDL and high triglycerides, you don't necessarily have high SD-LDL. You probably do, but you don't necessarily, right? And so, but you can get a LDL subfraction test, and you can just see for sure. But that's expensive. It's an extra test. Not everyone does it. And so it's looking at your HDL. If your triglycerides are low, you don't even need to look at your HDL. You almost certainly don't have the SD-LDL. Probably most of it's large buoyant. If that's a bit high, like, okay, now look at your HDL. If your HDL is high and, above 40, things like that, again, it's less likely that you have SD-LDL. And then it's like, both of those are a little off. Well, what about the ratio? Okay, well, your HDL is about equal to your triglycerides. That's actually really good. Again, very unlikely. But again, all this is telling you is, on the average, percentage-wise, your likelihood of having pattern A or pattern B. Pattern A, large buoyant. Pattern B, more SD-LDL. So that's really what you're looking at there. So it's not necessarily bad, right now. But again, I just check it later on, because that'll be fine. If you have anything else besides red meat and water, I just cut all that out. You'll feel better anyway in other ways, and see how you go. And those numbers will absolutely improve. Your HDL will keep going up. Your triglycerides will keep coming down, and they will stabilize at a certain point, but they'll be in good levels as long as you're just eating meat and water, and particularly red meat and water. Another super chat from Adam. Thanks again. How do you feel about the occasional lactose-free milk? Well, lactose-free milk just doesn't have lactose, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have carbohydrates. So, lactose-free milk is given an enzyme that lactase, for people that are lacking in lactase, they put that in the milk, and that breaks that bond. So lactose is a disaccharide. So that's two carbohydrates bonded together. So glucose and galactose bonded together. Some people can't break that bond. And so that goes into our colon, where our bacteria are, and they can certainly break that bond, and they can eat that, and they produce gas and bloating and swelling and discomfort and all that sort of stuff, and sometimes diarrhea and a lot of gas. And so, that's what people with lactose intolerance, experience. So if you are drinking lactose-free milk, what they do is they put that lactase enzyme in there, and it just breaks that bond. And so now you just have glucose, free-floating glucose and galactose, which your body can then absorb. So you're still getting carbs, right? So having some milk occasionally, whether it's lactose-free or not lactose-free, if you are able to make lactase, is okay. But I mean, people will hear that and go, great, and they're just going to drink a whole bunch of milk. Don't do that. There's enough carbs in there that it's going to raise your insulin level. And it's going to raise your blood sugar, raise your insulin. And that high insulin is going to kick you out of metabolic ketosis. Certainly, it's just going to disrupt your normal workings. You don't want your insulin high. You don't want your blood sugar high. Past physiological levels of blood sugar, carbs are a toxin. They cause direct damage to your body, and your body responds to detoxify this quickly by raising your insulin, right? So this is not good. Every now and then, your body can handle it, you know? So fine. You know, well, what about kids? Why do they drink it? Kids stay in ketosis when they're drinking breast milk. Not everyone knows that, but they do, because kids are much easier. They're much easier to get into ketosis. Then you start put them on formula, just a bunch of sugar and crap, and maybe their ketosis aren't able to stay in it, but they can get into ketosis much easier. Now, as adults, it takes 24 hours usually to start getting into ketosis, and then probably a couple of days to get into deep ketosis. Kids are much quicker, because it's vital for them to be in ketosis, because that's when their brain is growing the most. And you need those ketones to get into the brain, to fuel the brain. People say that you need glucose to feed the brain. Nonsense. They do not understand biochemistry or normal physiology. I don't care if they're a professor or anyone else. They don't know what they're talking about. Your brain preferentially runs on ketones. Why do I say that? Because even if you have high blood sugar, if you have any ketones, your brain is running on those ketones, and that's filling the gaps with the glucose. And as the ketones come up, your body starts using less and less and less and less blood sugar, until finally, when you have enough ketones, your brain just goes, right, this is all we're using. It doesn't matter how high. You could have all the blood sugar in the world. If you have enough ketones, your brain will only run on the ketones. That shows preference. Your brain preferentially runs on ketones, and those ketones cross the blood-brain barrier, get into the brain, reconstitute into fatty acids, right? So you break down fatty acids, turn those into ketones. Those are the energy sources circulating throughout the body that our cells use in the mitochondria, and that can cross into the blood-brain barrier, and they can actually reform into fat. Those make up the building blocks, the physical structures of your brain as well. So when you're trying to build a brain and put on mass of brain, 70% of your brain is fat. Where do you think that's coming from? It's coming from, your body, your ketones, and your diet and things like that. So you need this stuff. So you want to have a glass of milk every now and then with a steak, fine. If you're just going to be, chugging milk, I think you're doing it wrong, and you're not going to have as good of results. Even raw milk's so much better, I think, so much more healthy. But I still think that it's something you should do sparingly. I mean, certainly not every day, probably not even every week, as a treat, once every couple of months, maybe. But maybe just not at all. I don't know. Every now and then, when I can score some fresh raw milk, like when I'm in Washington, visiting my family, I'll usually have some, but I find it's very addictive. All of a sudden I just get it and I want more. And I was like, get more, and which is a natural response when you're breastfeeding, because you're trying to get in all these nutrients to grow. Oh, I should get more of this stuff. I don't want that. At this point, I don't want anything that's compelling me to have more of it. I think that's a bad sign anyway. So every now and then I'll have a bit of it, but I do limit that to very, very infrequent occasions. So Razvan Ron, thank you very much for Razvan Ron is the currency. Don't know where that is though. But thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Anthony. Thanks for all of your work. How dangerous are yogurt, kefir, cheeses, mozzarella, parmesan, brie, feta if consumed weekly? Well, they're not necessarily dangerous. It's just that they're not necessarily ideal either. It depends on what the cow's eating. If they're being fed, different sorts of, grains and feed and things like that, probably not as good for you as if they were just eating grass, or are a lot of grass-fed dairy cows. And so that could be just fine from that standpoint. But the milk proteins, like the different, caseins, like, A1 proteins versus A2. A1 is quite pro-inflammatory. A2 is also pro-inflammatory. It's just not as inflammatory as A1. And so if you have a particular sensitivity to that, anyone with autoimmune issues really needs to be careful with any sort of dairy. I don't have a problem with dairy, but if I do consume enough of it, I start getting back pain. I start getting muscle aches and things like that. I don't like that. That's not what I want to do. So I sort of avoid that. If you are having those things, I would only use them as a condiment. They have good, nutrients, right? That's great. But they don't have every nutrient. And so you'll still need to eat meat as well. So you use it as a condiment to meat, maybe putting some yogurt, on some like ground beef or something like that to sort of help with the flavor, having a bit of kefir, I've always pronounced it kefir, but I've heard some people saying kefir. With it, just having a bit of that, some of those fermented things, could potentially help with digestion. Certainly after you had antibiotics, you probably want a bit of those to help sort of, replenish your gut microbiome. If it even gets there, if it doesn't get burned out in your stomach. And cheeses, again, melted onto meat or with meat only. I wouldn't just eat that on its own. But it's not the end of the world if you're just using it sparingly. But just remember, it's not optimal. It doesn't have all the, meat is the meal. That's what's going to give you all your nutrients in the proportion that you need them, right? And so I would just keep that in mind. Hey, Homestead Hat. Hey, buddy. Good to see you. So thanks for the super chat. It's very kind of you. So that's my friend Carrie Mann over at the Homestead House show. We've done a couple videos together, and we did a live just last week that was quite good. So we addressed a lot of carnivore questions. So people that were sort of new to carnivore, maybe they were being challenged on trying carnivore, just like the vitamin C question, like what do I do when people say this to me, and just sort of firing all those at me and trying to answer those as well as we could. We did that last Sunday, and people seem to like that. People can find that on both of our channels for the replay, and we're actually planning on doing more because we keep sort of getting more of these challenging. Well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this, and really trying to challenge the idea that carnivore is a good idea at all, right? Because that's important to do. When you have a theory, the responsible thing to do as a scientist is try to disprove it, right? And if you can't disprove it, as hard as you might try, well, then you've got something, right? But you don't try to prove it. You don't say, hey, how can I show that this is right? No. What can I do to show that this is wrong, right? So like, hey, maybe you're going to get scurvy. Okay, great. Try for 3 months. What happens? You don't get scurvy. Okay, that one's out. And you just go through the line. You try to disprove it, right? So we're asking for people to give their most challenging questions. Well, how to say like, well, how could this possibly be true because of X, right? Or what do you say about this and that? So trying to really challenge it as much as possible, because I think that's the responsible way to do it. So we keep getting more of these questions sent in, and so we're actually putting those together, and so we're going to try to do probably something next week. I haven't seen your message yet. I know that you replied, so we're probably looking at sometime during the week next week, but I'll announce that, and hopefully see you guys there, and we'll do some more challenging questions. RB, thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, how would carnivore affect someone that has undergone a transplant, BMT kidney? I know that GVD is not the same as autoimmune exactly, but could carnivore possibly alleviate these symptoms? It's very hard to say because when you're talking about replacing a kidney or any sort of other structure, I mean, that is something that your body is supposed to react to and to reject and to fight. So it's very hard to say. I mean, it's going to help your health in a lot of other ways. I can't say that it's going to help with rejection, graft versus host disease, which is GVHD, and that's sort of basically rejecting an organ, for people that aren't aware of that. So that I don't know if it would help that, honestly, because you're supposed to react to that, right? You're supposed to sort of react and fight against that. Now, graft versus host, so that sort of big horrible reaction where your body starts attacking itself, maybe, but I mean, I have no idea. It's not something that I've seen before in this context. I think it would help your health in a lot of other ways. Eventually a lot of these organs, they can actually be replaced. Your body actually replaces it with its own tissue in some cases. Certainly with I'm fairly sure the liver, at some point you can even stop taking immune suppressants, from what I understand. I don't do transplant surgery, but from speaking to transplant surgeons years ago, that was my impression, that eventually your body actually replaces this with your own with your own cells. Certainly does that with tendons and ligaments. You know, you do an ACL reconstruction from a cadaver. Within 1 year, you take a biopsy of those tissue, of those fibers, and it's all your own cells and all your own DNA. Very interesting. So it'll help you in a lot of other ways. I cannot say one way or the other if it's going to help with graft versus host. My guess would be probably wouldn't make a difference on that one, but you know, it would help in other ways. I still think it would be worth it. Yulia, thank you very much for the super chat. No question attached, but very kind of you. Thank you very much. And another one from Tina as well. So thank you very much. And then here's one from Yulia. Thank you again for that. Hi, Anthony. What protocol would you recommend for a faster full recovery after sinus surgery with anesthesia, 1 week of antibiotics? Well, I mean, I think it doesn't really change, you know, if you're recovering from surgery, or you're recovering from anything, or you're just trying to live your best, most optimal life in optimal health. It's just eating red meat and water, eating satiety, and getting a lot of rest. If you're having antibiotics, I think it's probably a good idea to have a bit of yogurt, as I mentioned earlier. You know, live culture, you know, lactobacillus yogurt, and having that with your bites of food, eating that together, having that come in, that can help sort of seed your stomach, or not your stomach, but your lower intestines and things like that, if it makes it that far. But that's what I would do anyway. Anytime I don't know, I've taken antibiotics maybe once or something like that, once or twice in the last 6 years. But you know, when I did, I would just take a bit of live culture yogurt. With that, I never noticed a difference one way or the other. You know, I certainly didn't notice any problems with my digestion afterwards. But you know, that's what I would do anyway. But I would still keep eating red meat and water, especially after surgery, because you're trying to recover. Your body's trying to heal. You need your immune system working optimally. You need your body working optimally so it can heal, so you can rest and recover and get back to normal. So the best way to do that is just giving your body exactly what it needs, which is red meat and water, fatty red meat and water, or just fatty meat and water, and nothing that it doesn't need, which is, you know, sugar and seed oils and garbage and coffee and tea and all these other sorts of things that you don't really want. Certainly artificial ingredients and sweeteners are included in that as well. And so good luck with that. I hope you recover well. Super chat from Louise. Thank you very much. Could carnivore help prevent ALS or someone with ALS? That's a very good question. I don't know one way or the other. You know, there's no evidence one way or the other. I've spoken to, you know, people such as Phil Escott, you know, who has spoken to other people. He thinks that you know, potentially with doing everything perfectly right, you know, perfect grass-fed and finished red meat, you know, beef and water only, and, you know, sort of like filtered out all the other crap that's in tap water, and, you know, getting outside, adequate light exposure, sun exposure. And he was saying that, you know, grounding and sleep and everything, optimizing those things all perfectly, that you probably could. There's no studies one way or the other that I know of, or else that would be mainline news, I think. But it's going to improve your health in a lot of other ways, and so it could make dealing with ALS much better. And I you know, I think there are these things. You have these genetic predispositions and these environmental triggers, and even if you have the genetic expression for these things, or the genetic predisposition, that you may not get an expression of these things. You may not have the phenotype. You may have the genotype, but you may not get the phenotype if you don't have the exposure to the you know, whatever is going to trigger that off. Good example of this: a couple of cases of people with Huntington's disease, which I thought was just 100% penetrance. You'd have a 100% people get Huntington's if you had the gene for it. And I was shocked when people were saying, actually, people with Huntington's are improving. So I think it's well worth the shot. I mean, especially when someone has ALS. I mean, Jesus, man, just throw the kitchen sink at it. Just try whatever the hell you can, you know, because you don't, you know, you want to at least try something and see what you can do. So, I know if it were me, that's what I would try to do. I'd try to optimize my health in every conceivable way, optimizing sleep, optimizing getting out in the sun, enjoying my life, reducing stress, lifting weights, doing sprinting, and eating just grass-fed and finished beef, and that's it. And spending as much time as I could with my family and my loved ones, and that's exactly what I would do. And I think that's a better way to live anyway, even if it doesn't help with the ALS. But I hope to God it does, because that would be amazing if it did. So fingers crossed on that one. I really hope it helps. Thank you very much for the super chat, Curly. Curly Messer asked a question. Diagnosis from CT scan, hypodensity liver. Just started a carnivore diet a week and a half ago. Can this help with my issue? Depends on what's causing that. So it depends on what's causing hypodensities in the liver. Sometimes people can get cysts. Some people can get certainly a fatty liver. Fatty liver will absolutely reverse on a carnivore diet. Usually within a couple of weeks, it will start getting better. But it depends on what the hypodensity is. There's a lot of these things that they get pop up in the liver. And they generally get ignored. They're normal enough. They don't mean that they're cancer or anything like that. They're just something, and you sort of keep an eye on it. And if it starts changing, then you may get a biopsy and see what's going on. It could be a cyst. Could be sometimes you get like infections and all these sorts of things that can cause cysts or abscesses or all these sorts of things. So it depends on the context. If you just got a CT scan for something else, and it just sort of showed up on that, and you don't have any symptoms, the doctor's not worried about it, probably wouldn't worry too much about it. You might get better on a carnivore diet, but it depends on what it is. If you have other sorts of symptoms, if you're sick, you're unwell, you have jaundice, you have other sorts of problems, your doctor who ordered that should be well on top of that. And so, and then it just matters what's going on there. But carnivore diet's just going to help you just be healthier in general. And so, it depending or regardless of what that is going to help improve your health. But quite often people see these hypodensities on the liver, and they really don't really mean anything significant. They're not like sign of you have a disease that needs to be treated. It might be that you're eating the wrong things and things are building up, and this is just sort of down upstream of other things coming down the pipe. But you generally just hypodensities in and of themselves, when they're not symptomatic, aren't necessarily concerning, unless there's other sort of particular features on the scan that is more concerning, or you have concerning features and the symptoms as well on top of that. So, but it could very well help, but it depends on what is causing the hypodensity. Super chat from DWPBQFPG. Thank you very much. They say, cut my caffeine from 5+ coffees on night shift to none now. That's fantastic. Been carnivore for almost 2 months, lifting weights and hill sprinting after 12+ hour shift. Awesome. Very good. Love this change. Thank you, Dr. Chaffee. You inspired me to change. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much thank you for the super chat. You didn't have to do that, but that's amazing. That's an amazing result. I'm really glad that you're doing so well. And that's what a lot of people are seeing. You don't need as much caffeine. You feel great. You sleep better. You have better energy, more consistent energy throughout the day or the night, depending on where you work. And people just have better energy, and they're able to work out. And if you're able to work out too, that increases your ability to work out as well. People find that, I don't really have the energy to work out. Well, actually, if you go work out, you'll have more energy as a result of that. And the next day, you feel a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And all of a sudden, actually, from working out, you find that you have a lot more energy ongoing, even though you're using more energy as well. So that's great that you're doing so well. That's awesome. Well done. So a question from Prime Valley Yours. So thank you for the super chat question. Friend is type 1 diabetic for 36 months, now in her early 30s, and needs a kidney transplant. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. What guidance do you have for her for starting carnivore? Get on it right away, because going onto a carnivore diet with no carbohydrates, no fruit, no honey, no excess dairy and milk and things like that, you are going to perfectly control your blood sugar. And so you'll need much less insulin. Generally, people with the type 1 diabetes only need a background long-acting insulin, like low dose of, Lantus is one of the brands, right? So you take that, and that just keeps your insulin level at this low baseline level that you need it at for your normal functioning for the next 24 hours. And you don't need all the ups and downs. You don't have to take the fast acting before every meal, before you drink, before you eat, before you do all these other sorts of things. So it's much safer. Not injecting your body with all this insulin is much better, because you don't want high insulin. You want that insulin down, because that insulin messes with your body in a lot of other ways. So, getting the requirement for insulin down to that basal level is going to do wonders for your friend's health. And they're also going to be able to control their blood sugar much better as well, right? So they're not going to have the highs and lows. They're not going to take a bit too much and have a crash and have to eat sugar and do all that sort of garbage, which normally people do. It's pretty insane. Some of the diabetic, agencies and things like that, they're starting to come around, but some of them just say, it doesn't matter, eat as much carbs as you want, just as long as you take enough insulin. That's insane. How about you just don't eat the carbs and you don't need the damn insulin? Well, these people are funded by the people that make insulin. Here's a fun fact. So people know that I've been sort of going on about how the Seventh-day Adventist Church actually founded the nutritional sciences and the American Nutritional and Dietetics Association in 1917, early 1920s. They founded the curriculum for nutrition in universities around the world. Everywhere that studies nutrition, it's going to be plant-based, because it's from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, who espouse a plant-based diet. All these Adventist studies and things like, vegetarian, vegan diets, these are better. What do they define as a vegetarian diet? You only eat meat once a week. What's a vegan diet? You only eat meat once a month. Okay, so that's not the same thing. That's not what people are actually talking about or doing when they're doing vegetarian or vegan diets. So that's intentionally misleading. And but that's a complete aside. But so they write the curriculum, they write the books, they write the literature for nutrition and for nutrition courses. They set the curriculum and the textbooks for degrees in nutrition. They've also founded lifestyle medicine, the specialty. So, people like, Dr. Ids, who's this, TikTok doctor. God knows if he even sees any patients in real life. Probably not. Hopefully not. He says right there, he's a lifestyle medicine specialist. So that was founded by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Harvey Kellogg cereal, he was a Seventh-day Adventist. They're still heavily tied up and invested with Kellogg cereal. Sanitarium Foods is the largest processed food manufacturer in Australia. I believe it's the largest. They're founded by the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the early 1900s. They get tax exempt status. So they get this multi-billion-dollar international commerce, and they pay no taxes on it. All funds their anti-meat agenda. Not pro-plant, anti-meat. That's what they're about. They think meat causes sin. It makes you lustful. Lust is a sin, and therefore meat is a sin. So you want to eat these processed foods and plant-based crap in order to suppress your more baser feelings, which is just insane. What you're doing there is you're just suppressing your hormones and making you sick. So your body says, you're not going to be able to support a baby. You should not procreate. That's what that's doing. So that's not good. They think it's good because, that sort of temperance Puritan movement, in the 1800s, they were all about that. No, it's not good. It's that you're hurting people. So anyway, Kellogg's is vertically integrated. So they grow a lot of their own crops and things like that. They use that to manufacture their disgusting processed garbage, and they even own pharmaceuticals. Guess which ones they are? They're diabetic medications that lower blood sugar and they'll make you insulin. All these sorts. So they're completely vertically integrated from cradle to the grave, feeding you crap, getting you sick, and then giving you the antidote, or at least the temperance measure to make it so you don't die right away, so you can keep buying their crap. These people are evil. I think that's the most disgusting and evil thing. What they're saying that is they know for a fact that their product causes diabetes, and they're selling you the treatment for that diabetes. Absolutely sickening. And they're giving tons of money to the Diabetic Association and say, oh, yeah. Eat all the crap you want. Eat all the Kellogg's cornflakes you want. Just take this Kellogg's brand insulin as well. F off. That pisses me off so bad. And it's a good thing I don't know where these people live. I'll just put it that way. So in any case, I think your friend would really benefit from that. I can't say anything about her kidney, needing a transplant or not, but I can certainly say that it's going to help her diabetes, and I'm sure it will. So I hope that your friend gets on that and does really well with it. I'm sure she will. So question from Mac. Thank you very much for the super chat. Like you, I generally want to eat once a day, but I'm concerned about wholesome nutrition. Would egg, steak, ground beef, and liver be sufficient? 100%. Absolutely. As long as you are eating enough and there's enough fat. So there's about enough fat in eggs, about 60% calories from fat. So just slightly less than 1 gram of fat per 1 gram of protein in whole eggs. In egg yolks, there's slightly more. It's actually probably about twice as many grams of fat than protein. So that's pretty good. In steak, depends on the cut. Ground beef depends on the mixture, right? So most ground beef are going to be way too lean, right? Especially in Australia, super lean. They just go crazy with the lean here, probably because of sanitarian foods and all the Seventh-day Adventist influence they have. And I should preface that by saying this is not to say anything about anyone who's in the Seventh-day Adventist church, just living their own life and trying to be healthy. I'm talking about the top-down powers that be that are pushing this dogma on people. They are pushing an anti-meat agenda. That doesn't mean that anyone in the 22 million of these people around the world, I'm sure most of them are lovely people, and unfortunately just being, subverted by their own church, which is really the opposite of what's supposed to happen, right? They're supposed to help them get better, not suppress them and make them less healthy. But either way, there's a very, very big anti-fat sort of thing in Australia, and so many things are very lean. The meat is trimmed to a fault, and so sometimes you have to add butter. So depending on how much fat is in those cuts, those are definitely the best. Liver is great. I just wouldn't eat too much of it, right? So in certain proportion, liver is great, especially when you're eating, a standard diet, plant-based diet, which standard diet is a plant-based diet. 70% of calories come from plant-based sources in a standard Australian, standard American, standard UK diet, right? It's all plant-based, right? And people are getting worse. So liver is your best friend in that regard, because it has so many nutrients. It's going to fill in a lot of gaps, right? When you're on just a carnivore diet, you really are you'll get what you need just from skeletal muscle, meat, and fat, except some people may metabolize things a bit differently, so they might need a little bit more. People with the MTHFR gene, they won't process folate as well, so maybe they might need a bit more liver to get a bit more folate. Other people will be fine. You get plenty of folate in the rest of it to meet our demands. So when you're having liver, just think of it in proportion, right? First of all, the Inuit don't eat liver and organs at all, right? Because they're eating, predators, carnivores. And so the fat soluble vitamins get built up to a toxic degree in their organs. And so they have to stay away from those. But they're also eating wild animals that are just going to be more nutritious anyway. If you're getting regeneratively raised, grass-fed and finished beef, it's going to be 4 or 5 times the amount of micronutrients that store-bought grain-finished beef is. Okay, so if you're one of these people that needs a bit more of these nutrients, and you're getting grain-finished beef from Costco, which is what I do, having a bit of liver every now and then is fine. I've checked my bloods, I've checked all my things. I'm fine. I don't really need anything extra. I'm perfect as I am. I've seen a couple people with low folate, most of them not symptomatic, some of them symptomatic. Take some more liver, then sorts it right out. And so, but you want to stay within proportion of the cow, right? So think about this, when we're in nature, right? You take down a buffalo, you as an individual, that's going to be 2 years of meat on that thing, right? It's got 1 liver, it's got 1 heart, it's got 2 kidneys, right? So you're going to have that over the next 2 years. if you can preserve it, so you really can't without refrigeration. That they don't really preserve very well. So you can dry it out or sort of desiccate these things, but God knows if anyone did. They probably just ate them a bit fresh, passed them around, and then really what they ate was the muscle meat and fat. So that's what I would do. I would just keep it in proportion, make sure you're getting enough fat, and then yeah, that's a perfect diet right there. So another question from Adam. Thank you very much, sir. How do you obtain electrolytes, and is it safe to follow a carnivore diet during pregnancy? Are there any necessary supplements to take? It is 100% safe to do during pregnancy. This is how we evolved. This is how we grew up, right? So, during the ice ages, what plants were there to eat? None, right? We're eating a carnivore diet. We're eating meat, fatty meat. And that was during pregnancy as well. The Inuit are doing it today. The Maasai are doing it today. The Nanette are doing it today. A lot of European descended people in the carnivore movement are doing it today, right? So the Andersons, they've just been eating ribeye steak for 25 years plus, and they've got 3 kids, all carnivore. Kelly Hogan has, I think, again, 3 kids just doing carnivore as well. So no, you get absolutely everything you need. The only supplement you need to take is what you're deficient in. So if you're getting everything that you need and you're fine on your blood test, then no, you don't need to take anything. Folate is important. That one you should check, right? Because having low folate can cause neural tube defects like spina bifida. So that's not something you want to mess around with your kid. And so, even if you're not symptomatic, but your folate's a little low, I would absolutely start eating some liver and make sure your folate's going up. If you need to take a folate supplement, definitely take a folate supplement. I wouldn't mess around with that. But by and large, the vast majority of people will be just fine, just eating skeletal meat and fat. But having a bit of liver, that's something that's been well documented for a long time. Adele Davis, the nutritionist, commonly said, eating raw liver for kids was really important, really good, or at least of benefit. And pregnant women in pregnancy, this was a really good thing as well. So, it's and electrolytes. Yeah, you get everything you need in the proportion that you need them from the meat you're eating, because that's what we're designed to eat, right? And so I don't take supplements and vitamins or electrolytes or anything like that. And I'm still here. So are the Inuit and the Nanette and the Maasai and all the other aforementioned people. So sometimes people have like a bit of a hiccup issue when they're going keto, basically, when they're just dropping the carbs, their insulin comes down. But really what that's doing is normalizing. You're going back to the state you're supposed to be in. Your insulin's supposed to be down, right? And so when your insulin goes up, it actually interrupts the release or retention of electrolytes. And so that messes with that. So your body compensates and tries to balance, because it needs to be balanced, right? And so there are other mechanisms that will release or draw back other electrolytes. And so your insulin is chronically high, your body adapts for that. Your insulin comes back down to normal, your body's going to adapt to that as well. Maybe some people have a bit of a hiccup period where it takes a few days or a couple of weeks before they properly get adapted to that lower level of insulin. But it will happen, and so maybe in those first few weeks or days or whatever, taking some electrolytes, might be a good idea. But generally that's temporary. The vast majority of people do not need to take electrolytes. And if you are taking electrolytes, never take the ones with stevia or erythritol or monk fruit sugar or any sort of flavorings or sweeteners, anything. They do come unflavored. They don't taste great, I'm told. I've never had them. But, who cares? You're worried about health. You're not worried about like, oh, it tastes nummier, and I just don't give a shit. It's just, you don't want to put that stuff in your body. You just don't want to put that stuff in your body. We forego a lot of things that are nummy, like pizza and beer. I find a lot of different sorts of beers that actually taste quite well, quite good. And wine tastes quite good. Whiskeys taste amazing. Don't do it. It's not good for you. Sugar tastes great. Don't do it. It's a drug. I'm sure cocaine smells lovely. Don't do it. So that's my take on that. You just don't need that sort of stuff. But yes, it's 100% good for you in pregnancy. And I would argue that it's not only safe, but vital for women to do carnivore during pregnancy. First of all, your pregnancy is going to go a lot better. You're going to feel a lot better. You're not going to put on as much insensible weight. You're not going to have as much morning sickness. You're not going to have you're not going to get gestational diabetes. You're going to have an easier time of it. You're not going to get as much stretch marks. That's something that people are reporting. They don't get the stretch marks when they're eating meat-based or carnivore as they did in other pregnancies when they weren't meat-based. So that's something that's going to be better as well. And the most important thing is the kid is going to do so much better, right? That child is going to develop so much better. And that's really the most important part of it. But think about, animals in the wild. They're pregnant, they're having babies. Their bodies aren't just getting destroyed in the manner that ours are, right? And pregnancy can be very hard on the body. And people say, oh, well, they've had a couple of kids, their body just not the same anymore. Okay, but a lioness, they look the same basically their whole lives, even though they've had a number of different litters. Same with elephants, same with badgers, same with elk, all of these things. It's birds laying eggs constantly, right? And it's not destroying their body. So, that's something that I would think about. We're actually hurting ourselves, and most importantly, we're hurting our kids by not eating the right thing and not giving ourselves and our kids what we and they need from the get-go. And I think that's very important. A super chat from Casey Smith. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. What is the most effective way to contact you with any hemochromatosis updates and progress? I'd be happy to be a guinea pig and share the results to help others with this. Probably my email. On social media as well, like on Instagram. I do try to go through those, but it's difficult because I get quite a lot of messages. I get inundated with emails as well, but I have an email set up to try to talk to people, but I can't answer medical questions and things like that. I have to reserve that for the Q&As and things like that. Unfortunately, I can't answer all the emails with personal questions about things, unfortunately. But I do have that email when people are trying to collaborate, or that I've said, hey, contact me or something like that, or want to invite me on for a podcast or whatever. My email, just anthonychaffee@gmail.com, is a good way of doing that. Although, because people see that and they do try to ask a lot of questions, that again, I get a lot of messages that it's quite difficult to sort of get everything through. But that and my Instagram, Anthony Chaffee MD, sending me a DM there, I'll try to catch those. So yeah, I would be very interested in that. Dr. Baker has had a number of patients with hemochromatosis, and he's actually found that they've done better as well, and haven't had as much of an issue as they did previously. So hopefully that's the case with you as well. But I'm definitely very interested in hearing that. So contact me one of those ways and let me know. Super chat from David. Thank you very much, sir. My cousin asked me how do I get potassium on a carnivore diet without supplementing? I didn't know what to say. Thanks so much, doc. Yeah, well, so we get everything we need in the proportion that we need it. And people say, well, you need X amount of potassium a day. That's only in the context of eating a mixed diet, because that's when we looked at the RDAs. And first of all, I just don't trust a single thing that Ansel Keys has ever done. He probably made his name for himself by doing the RDAs and doing these sorts of things. Probably a good scientist. You wouldn't be in a position to sell your soul if you don't have something to sell. Sell your integrity if you don't have any integrity to sell. But honestly, God knows when the corruption started with that guy. We know that he's corrupt. We know that he was bought and paid for. We know that he was a paid shill of the food and sugar companies for decades. So it's just like, why would you trust a single thing that idiot said? Also, he's wrong. You get these RDAs, so you have to have this much vitamin C. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't though, and I don't get scurvy, so you're wrong. And there's so many other things he was wrong about as well. Whether that was because he was just wrong, or because he was a paid shill and an asshole, and just tried to intentionally mislead people. I don't know, but I do know that he's wrong. So the RDAs, you can check those out. They don't apply to us, So I would just point out that, You get everything that you need in the proportion that you need it, because this is our biologically designed diet. So of course you're going to get everything you need. And our bodies are very good at your body. You're not just peeing out potassium for the sake of peeing out potassium. You have to get it back in. Your body will absolutely hang on to this stuff. If your potassium, it's going to keep it at a very, very, very controlled level, because if it goes too low or too high, your heart starts getting arrhythmias and you die. So your body doesn't want that, surprisingly enough. And so your body's going to perfectly regulate that. So, what amount of potassium that we get in, our body's going to control that and keep hold of that very well. It's generally metabolic physiological processes when we're very unwell that end up dropping our potassium. Or if we're having a massive influx of potassium, we can get potentially too high potassium, which is life-threatening. Right? This is how lethal injection work. They anesthetize people, they put them to sleep, they paralyze them, they numb them so they can't feel any pain, and they're not conscious, and then they give them a big whack of potassium, and that stops their heart pretty quickly. Right? So and so if your potassium's not low, well, you're obviously getting enough potassium. So that's the thing. It doesn't matter how brilliant your theory is, and it doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with the experiment, it's wrong. And so they say, well, you're not going to get enough potassium. Okay, let's check my potassium. I have normal potassium. Therefore, I'm getting enough potassium. QED, thus it is proved. So that's what I would say. 67-year-old, well, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it. 67-year-old, 250 pounds with a long list of health problems, including type 2 diabetes, etc. How to wean myself off meds? Oh, that's going to be with your doctor. So, that's going to be very individual. It's not going to be like, on day 7, you drop this, and day 32, you drop that. It's going to be very individual for each person. And depending on what you're eating, if you're eating pure high-fat meat and water, you're eating enough, you're drinking enough water, your body's going to heal faster. Depends on when you're coming from as well, right? So if you're heavily insulin dependent and you're on 3 different oral medications, it's going to take a while to wean yourself off of that. What you need to do is you need to monitor what you are able to monitor. So you're diabetic, you need to check your blood sugar, at least twice a day. Same time every day. Just keep checking it every day. And when that blood sugar starts to, and if you're feeling dizzy, lightheaded, or just kind of a little gross or agitated or low energy, check your blood sugar, right? And if your blood sugar is consistently being a little low, you need to talk to your doctor. Hey, my blood sugar is a little low. I've changed my diet. I've started exercising. I'm losing weight. It looks like my blood sugar is going down. We need to start weaning these things off. And so you talk to your doctor and whoever's, or diabetic care nurse, or whoever's in charge of your diabetes medications, adjusting them. You need to get them involved early on. And you need to start talking to them about, okay, well, when my blood sugar starts coming down, what do I reduce first? And, where do I go from there? So blood pressure, same thing. So a lot of people in your situation, I would bet that you have blood pressure issues as well. Most people who are diabetic and have other sorts of laundry list of issues do have that, because of the metabolism and biochemistry of how processing carbs and sugars and seed oils and insulin resistance and all these sorts of things play in our body. It often causes high blood pressure as well. So you start getting dizzy, you're lightheaded, you need to check your blood pressure as well as your blood sugar. And if your blood pressure is down as well, you may not need as much of the medications that you're on. Check your blood pressure every day. Check it twice a day. And if you're getting consistently lower and lower and lower blood pressures, you need to talk to your doctor. Hey, I'm losing weight. I've changed my diet. I'm exercising. My blood pressure is too low. I'm getting lightheaded. My blood pressure numbers are a little lower. What do we do here? And and have them help you come off. And there are other medications as well. But you do need to be involved with your doctor. Your doctor needs to be involved in those things. You can't. It's not like a one size fit all. You need some hands-on care from your doctor to come off in the right way. So that's what I would do. Another super chat from Adam. Thank you very much, sir. Very, very generous of you. Does just beef and salt mean no butter? Yeah. Some people have a problem with butter. Some people have a problem with dairy. If you are in that category, adding more whole fat is the best way to do that. If you can get fattier cuts, or you can get fat trimmings from the butcher. That's the best option. Second best option is grass-fed finished tallow that you can get online. Usually it's yellow. If it's actually grass finished, it's yellow. It's not going to be white. And that's what you can do as an additive, or you can get if you don't have access to those, or you just prefer the flavor. I like the flavor of butter on a steak. It's just delicious, and I don't have a problem with dairy. So I tend to use a bit of butter if I want to increase the amount of fat that I want on a steak. So it just depends. If you have a problem with dairy, you have a bit of problem with butter, then do tallow or just more whole fat. But if you don't have a problem with dairy and you want to increase the amount of fat, some grass-fed butter is totally fine. Carrie, thank you very much for the super chat. Is it safe to go carnivore after Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, since I can only absorb 50% of what I'm eating? So I don't know the Roux-en-Y. That's just a type of gastric bypass, I guess. Not something I'm too familiar with, but it sounds familiar. But anyway, gastric bypass. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it's you're only going to absorb 50% of what you're eating. That's a really good reason to not do that surgery. It's you want to absorb the things that you eat. That's how your body's designed. That's how those organs are designed. It's just eating the right things. And so yes, it's not only safe, it is preferred and optimal, because again, you're only going to be absorbing 50% of what you're eating. So you need the most bioavailable food that you're going to be able to get, which is meat. It's always been meat. And so you're again going to get everything you need in the proportion that you need it. And it's going to be nearly 100% bioavailable, if not 100% bioavailable. So that's exactly what you want to eat. And when you're eating that way, you can listen to your body, you can listen to your satiety signals, you can just keep eating until meat stops tasting good. You have a bypass, you may have physically reduce the amount of capacity that you can have. So do not drink water 2 hours before you're eating a meal. Don't drink water for another hour after you finish a meal. You want all of that space to be for food, right? And you want to be able to digest and break those things down appropriately and properly. So that's what I would do. But yes, only eating meat is going to be the best thing for you, because you need the most bioavailable stuff. It's so common to get malabsorption issues and malnutrition issues. And, it's happened to, family members, and it was really hard to see. And they weren't losing weight. And the nutritionist was like, oh, you have to eat at least 1,200 calories a day or you're not going to lose weight. You're actually going to put on weight. It's just like, well, what the hell is this? Like, I thought we talked about this. I thought the whole point was to lose weight by not being able to eat more. And they said, just eat anything, just drink sugar, eat ice cream, just drink sodas. It's like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, why are you putting that toxic garbage into your body and getting, and then just getting worse eating habits as a result of getting this horrible surgery? I think it's a horrible surgery. I think it's an absolutely terrible surgery. It is not necessary. You just need to eat proper food, and you will lose more weight in a better manner, much safer. Once you've had it, though, I think it's even more important to be on a carnivore diet, because you really do need to get those nutrients, and you don't want a bunch of fiber and filth just jamming up this space and not providing you any benefit of any actual nutrition. So yeah, so for bypass, it's 100% safe. Don't have any concern there, and it's still definitely optimal as well. So let's see. So super chat from Sophie, thank you very much. 59-year-old female, mostly eating beef only for 1+ years. Ferritin of 361, hemochromatosis negative, A1C iron, Jesus Christ, CRP, CBC, lipids, thyroid panel, all normal. Was fatigued, but better. Doctors not ordering any scans or tests. Is that okay? No, I mean, if you're fine, you're fine. If that's a very responsible thing to do. If your doctor's not worried about anything, And then there's nothing to test. There's nothing to scan. Ferritin, goes up and down regardless of your iron status, because it's an acute phase reactant. So it can go up and down just depending on what's going on in your body. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Your hemochromatosis is negative, so there you go. Your iron levels are normal according to that panel that you said, so that's fine too. So ferritin goes up and down for its own reasons, and out of context, if you're well and you're feeling otherwise normal, there's no infections or no other sorts of chronic issues going on, a slightly elevated ferritin or even a dramatically elevated ferritin isn't necessarily an issue. It could be a sign that there's an issue, but if you're completely asymptomatic, it's just something you sort of keep an eye on and see, like, okay, well, maybe something's about to, rear its head, and you just sort of keep an eye on it. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. We treat, you should be treating patients and not blood tests. So, if your ferritin's up a bit, but everything else is normal and you're healthy, I'm not gonna lose too much sleep over it, and you shouldn't either. All your tests look great. I mean, all that is great. Your CRP and your ESR. That's what I think you mean by SED. And sedimentation rate, I'm assuming that's what that is. So that's maybe ESR, but all that stuff looks great, and so if all those are normal and you're feeling good, and you've been doing just meat for a year, then that's fine. You don't need any other tests. I don't think that you need well baby checks. If you're feeling good and there's no other issues, it's fine. I wouldn't get too worried about that. If you wanted to, like if you had the MTHFR gene, you could check your folate and make sure that that's not a little low. Maybe need to add in a bit of liver or something like that. But I don't think that you need to check annually anyway and to get scans annually. I don't think that you need that unless you're actually feeling a bit unwell. And if you are, then having a targeted look at what's going on is probably a good idea. But if you're feeling well, then I just keep going with that. I wouldn't worry about it. I haven't had blood tests in years, and the only set of blood tests I had sort of 2-3 years after I got went back onto carnivore, and it was really for other people's curiosity rather than mine. I knew my bloods were all going to be optimal because I was eating what I'm supposed to eat. I was eating optimally. I was eating optimally for my species, and so I knew that my bloods were going to be optimal. And then other people were like, well, let's just see. Fine. Took a look, and what was it? They were all optimal, and that's what convinced them that maybe this is a good idea, maybe something they should look into for themselves as well as their patients. So that's why I did that. But I felt great then, so I knew there wasn't anything wrong. I feel great now, so I haven't seen any reason to check them again. I might do it just to prove that everything's fine, just because it's a bit more public and things like that, and people ask. But honestly, I just couldn't care less. So I don't think you necessarily need to check things unless there's a problem you're looking for. Super chat from Donna Hall. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. No question attached, but very kind of you to send that through. Allison, thank you very much for the super chat. Does liver help with magnesium deficiency and leg cramps? Well, it can, but eating just meat is going to help with all of that. Generally, when people find that they're low in magnesium, it's because they're coming from a deficient state. They're not eating, properly. They're not eating a meat-based diet prior to now, or they're doing things that are sucking out the magnesium out of their system, like drinking coffee, tea, caffeine. All these things are going to strip magnesium out of your body. And so you don't want that. And it's also going to dehydrate you, which is the number one cause of leg cramps is dehydration, number one. And so generally people getting leg cramps, it's often because they're dehydrated. And then you can certainly get it with low magnesium as well. But if you're eating a proper diet and you have been for a while, you likely won't have low magnesium. And some people will be taking magnesium supplements and still getting leg cramps. What's going on? What's going on? I'm just drinking salt water and all this magnesium and I'm still getting leg cramps. Well, you're dehydrated, obviously, because, if you're, most likely you're dehydrated. But because if you're taking magnesium and you're taking electrolytes, then it's not an electrolyte issue, right? Because you're taking them, right? So you're not going to have deficient electrolytes and you're still getting leg cramps. So it's something else, right? It's most commonly water. You're just not drinking. Oh, but I drink X amount of water a day. Well, it's obviously not enough. Try drinking more. Most people don't drink enough. I talk to people, oh no, I drink like 1 liter to 1.5 liters a day. And I'm like, to me, that's insane. Like I drink like 6 liters a day. Sometimes, I don't always get the chance to do that, but I feel better when I do. And so, I think you want to drink, if you're getting leg cramps, then I think you definitely try drinking more water. And you want to have some liver, great. Just make sure you're not doing things that stripping out magnesium, like drinking coffee. And you'll probably be okay just by eating just normal meat. Add in some liver, totally fine. Drink more water though. That's my advice. And don't drink coffee. So a super chat from Lighthousen. It's kind of cool. I've always thought it'd be fun to live in a lighthouse, but like one of the ones that are like offshore, like on a rock somewhere, and you're just completely isolated and then just having waves crashing around you. I think that'd be awesome. And just very secluded. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I don't know why, but I, for some reason, think that'd be a lot of fun. Do you have any experience with carnivore diet helping with adrenal fatigue? Yeah, I mean, people's personal accounts and talking about it. Look, you're going to be optimizing your health in a lot of ways, and a lot of times we get adrenal fatigue because we're eating the wrong things and we're stressing our bodies unduly. And so going back and helping normalize a lot of our physiological processes will help with that as well. It can take a while. A lot of these things don't. I mean, I really like this statement I saw someone say, but it said there's no shortcuts. Right. You walk 10 miles into the woods, you're going to have to walk 10 miles out. There's no shortcut home, so it's going to take time. But, when you're optimizing your nutrition, you are going to optimize those parts of your health that have been affected by nutrition. And so adrenal fatigue, it can absolutely be affected. There are other causes, there's other things in your life that could be affecting these things, genetic, environmental as well. But this will at least account for the dietary side of things. And yes, there are a number of people that have improved adrenal fatigue given time with a carnivore diet. But, these things do take time. So don't be, don't be discouraged if it doesn't happen right away. You should feel better, a lot better early on, but it's going to keep getting better and better and better and better and better. Also remember, seed oils have something like a 4-year half-life in our body. Okay, that's insane. So a lot of people have been eating a lot of seed oils and junk food with oils and added cooking oil and cooking with canola oil and soybean oil, all these sorts of things. It's going to take years for that stuff to get out of your body. So people are feeling a lot better now. It keeps getting better because you're getting more and more of this crap out of your system. And some of these things take a very long time. And some of these things are like these forever chemicals that just never go away. They're just in your body forever. And the seed oils and things are the almost forever chemicals. They stay in your body for years. And so, it's just, these things do take time. A lot of people get a lot of very, very good results early on, and they keep seeing improvements as they go. A friend, Sean White, he lost, close to 280 pounds in a year. He's still got weight to lose. People look at that and go, well, I want to lose 280 pounds. Why haven't I lost all the weight? It's been 3 months and I'm not down to my 16-year-old swimsuit figure. Well, that's, look at the positives, right? Count your blessings. That's a very, old statement, saying, and it's for a reason. Focus on the good things. You're saying, hey, I didn't reach my end goal yet. Fine. What are some of the positives that you're seeing? Well, I'm losing weight. I'm gaining health. I've come off medications. I have more energy. I feel better. My autoimmune issues are in remission. So there's a lot of positive things. Focus on the positive things as you go. They will be there, and they'll keep being there. And eventually, most people will get at least close to their goal. And hopefully, you do with your adrenal fatigue as well. So super chat from Kip. My daughter was talking to a nutritionist today and said this person told her doing keto basically just killing yourself quicker because it shuts your body down. I've never heard this argument. Wondering if you have. Yeah, they're called idiots. They're called people that have no idea the basic physiology and biochemistry of human beings. I can do a nutritionist. Well, again, the nutritional sciences and curriculum have been set by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, who are anti-meat. That is, well, it's just silly, isn't it? Because infants, fetus, and infants and children are in ketosis. So is that because they're dying, or is that because this is our natural normal state, right? The Inuit, they're not eating any carbohydrates. There's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Nutritionists should damn well know that. Like, you do not have to eat any exogenous carbohydrates. There is no biochemical pathway in the body that requires exogenous fructose. None at all, right? And you don't need any exogenous glucose or carbohydrates of any kind. You make what little you need. There are a few tissues that are glucose dependent, like parts of the eye, some of the microvasculature and tubules of the kidney, and a couple other spots. That's it. And what little amount of glucose that you need, you make, right? The Inuits, people say, well, they never go into ketosis because their ketones don't go that high. What are we calling ketosis? What are we defining as ketosis? Is it having mega high ketones, or is it the ability to process fat and mobilize your fat stores and produce glucagon and go through gluconeogenesis to make glucose from your fat stores, or go through different processes intracellularly to do the same thing, and just to function and survive without carbohydrates, right? Going into that so-called fasting metabolism, whether your ketones are sky high or just at exactly a physiological level what your body wants them to be at. They're where they're supposed to be, and you're doing all these, and your insulin's very low, and all of your other biochemical and physiological reactions are happening. So that's silly. That nutritionist is, either hasn't practiced enough to understand that everything that they've learned in nutritional school is completely wrong and doesn't actually help people, actually makes people worse by and large, unless they're just getting away from processed crap. Or their industry. Those are sort of the two kinds, the ones that have industry ties and are just pushing processed garbage. And unfortunately, the people pushing the curriculum and being on boards and in faculty and all these sorts of things, they're all the ones with all these industry ties and careers and conflicts of interest and things like that. But either way, keto is basically just killing yourself quicker because it shuts down your body. What does it shut down exactly? It's not shutting down anything. There's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. If there were, Inuit wouldn't be here, right? Then Nanette wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. Sean Baker wouldn't be here. All of our ancestors throughout the ice ages wouldn't be here, right? People who fast wouldn't be here. You don't need carbohydrates. It's not killing you. There are so many benefits of fasting. What's the benefit of fasting? It's just not eating all the stupid crap. And that's the benefit, and getting away from carbohydrates that you don't need, because carbohydrates are toxic after 1 teaspoon, right? 4 grams. Our body has 4 grams of glucose in our body at any time. Anything more than that is toxic, and your body responds by clearing that toxin out of your body very rapidly with insulin, right? That means your body does not want it there. Not like, oh, hey, it'll utilize. No. It does not want it there, right? It is toxic after that level. Okay. So it's not that uncommon, but I mean, it's almost in the realm of being a dinosaur, thinking that keto is like bad for you. That has been thoroughly debunked and disproven with large, long-term human trials with keto. There was one that spanned 24 months, so 2 years. And people not only lost a lot of weight, but they reduced or kept their cortisol the same level. Their biochemical markers will all improve. There are signs and symptoms of hypercortisolism, which people say is, oh, you're going into a stress state and your body goes crazy with cortisol. No, it doesn't. And also first of all, metabolic syndrome is known for suppressing cortisol. So you have too low cortisol. Keto reverses metabolic syndrome. So these people that have metabolic syndrome, all of a sudden they're getting their cortisol higher compared to themselves, but they're actually going back up to a physiological level. So it's actually normal for them. And more than that, study after study after study, the long-term ones as well as short-term ones show that keto, long-term and short-term, help reverse the symptoms of hypercortisolism, even in primary or secondary hypercortisolism, right? So if you have a pituitary tumor, and so this is causing you to spit out a whole bunch of cortisol or something else, you put people on a keto, well, it is the case that in the studies that you can put people on a ketogenic diet in order to suppress the symptoms and signs and problems coming from hypercortisolism, right? So having too much cortisol. And people are kept on keto before and after surgical or medical definitive management of, their Cushing's disease or Cushing-Wood syndrome. And so, it's actually our normal state. And if it's safe for infants and babies, why would it not be safe for us? So that doesn't really make sense. And also it doesn't make sense because there are entire populations, civilizations, and all of our ancestors for millions of years that have by and large been in a ketogenic state because they have not been eating carbohydrates. And again, this is well recognized by institutes of medicine and science that there are no such things as an essential carbohydrate, which means that being in a state of ketosis, nutritional ketosis, is perfectly safe, and there's no detrimental side effects or anything like that. Okay, so another super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat. My husband is 34 years old. He's on medications for high blood pressure, cholesterol, acidity, fatty liver, high carb Indian diet. What should his diet look like? Well, it depends. So culturally, if you guys are vegetarian or vegan, I guess that matters. If you're a vegetarian, but you're like ovo-lacto vegetarian, I would eat eggs. Basically, you can just eat eggs, right? What is an egg? An egg has all the nutrients in order to grow an animal life form with nothing extra left over, right? It's exactly what you need. It has everything you need because it has to have everything you need or you're not going to make an animal. And it doesn't have anything extra left over because there's nothing extra left over. There's just a little chicken in there, right? There's nothing else, right? So it's exactly what at least that form of life needs. And so we get everything we need from it as well. So it's considered a perfect protein because it has the exact balance of amino acids that we need in the exact proportions that we need them. So it's the right balance, and not only the right amino acids, but the right balance of amino acids. That's very important. So you can just eat a ton of eggs. I would 100% get rid of carbs. I would 100% get rid of sugar and get rid of alcohol, get rid of seed oils, any cooking oils, get rid of them. If you are able to eat meat, based on your religion and culture, I would eat meat. I would go on a carnivore diet. I would go on a high-fat carnivore diet. If you're able to at least eat eggs, then go for the eggs instead of meat. But I would predominantly eat those, and I would eliminate out as much of the other stuff. Certainly all the processed garbage, right? Get rid of carbs. Get rid of sugar. Get rid of alcohol, 100%. And get rid of seed oils. Do not cook with cooking oils. Anything that's liquid at room temperature, do not have it in your house. That includes olive oil. Olive oil is much better than canola oil and soybean oil, way better. And certainly, coconut oil is better still, but they're still not perfect. Olive oil and avocado oil, they're still liquid at room temperature. They're still going to degrade into free radicals and to oxidative, stressors and things that can cause oxidative stress. They have more omega-6s than you want as well. And they also have a lot of plant sterols, which impede our normal functioning and metabolism of cholesterol, which you don't really want. So, the cholesterol medications like statins, what they do, how they lower cholesterol is they stop your body from making cholesterol in the first place. Your body's making good cholesterol. It's making the large buoyant LDL cholesterol molecules. It doesn't do anything about the small dense lipoproteins. That's a different pathway, right? So they don't do anything for that. They don't lower those ones, which are actually, have an association with disease. So you're actually lowering the LDL that's actually good for you. Lipitor, which is atorvastatin, and I think simvastatin, or one of the other. Well, there's a few others anyway, but certainly Lipitor, and that's like the most commonly used statin. That crosses the blood-brain barrier, as I believe that's the case. That crosses the blood-brain barrier and stops your brain from making cholesterol. About 20% of your brain is cholesterol, right? So you don't want to impede your brain from being able to make cholesterol, which is the building blocks for your brain. You get demyelination of your axons because a lot of that is cholesterol, and you can't build up your brain properly. You start reducing the myelination of your axons. Your brain cells can't fire properly. They can't communicate with each other. They can't move your body in the way that they're supposed to. They can't run your body the way they're supposed to. You start getting problems. And there was a study that I saw Dr. David Diamond present on at Metabolic Health Summit in Denver last year, or earlier this year, I should say, and something that Dr. Baker made a video about recently about statins, and that I encourage people to go check out, which was basically they had these people on these statins that cross the blood-brain barrier. And so they looked at that and said, okay, these are getting in the way of cholesterol metabolism and formation in the brain. What if we took these people off that? It's usually people with dementia, Alzheimer's, right? They took them off. In about 6 weeks, they all of a sudden didn't have Alzheimer's anymore, right? And their brains recovered. That's amazing, right? And then they put them back on the statins. And what do you know? 6 weeks later, they've got Alzheimer's again. Oh, shoot. It sucks that came back. What does that mean? That means this is causing neurodegradation of the brain. That's not okay. So that's something that people should think about. Are we concerned about cholesterol? Was cholesterol ever a marker of disease? I don't think that the literature bears that out. And the evidence certainly doesn't, because this was a fraud from the beginning. This was never the case that cholesterol caused heart disease, ever. That was never the case. That was a fraud. That was a lie. That's reported and documented in peer-reviewed journals such as the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2016, with actual internal memos from the sugar companies detailing how they paid off 3 Harvard professors to falsify data and publish fraudulent studies to make it appear as if cholesterol caused heart disease when it was really sugar, and to exonerate sugar and say that sugar was safe. One of those professors was named head of the USDA, and he was the one who authored and published the 1977 USDA declaration saying that cholesterol caused heart disease, and so we should stop eating it. So saturated fat increases cholesterol. Cholesterol causes heart disease. Stop eating all of this, and this is what changed the world. We stopped eating red meat. We stopped eating eggs. We started eating more, lean chicken and things like that, and we reduced our red meat by over 1/3. We increased seed oils by over 3-fold. We increased high fructose corn syrup by over 3-fold. And we increased fruits and vegetables by 30 and 40% respectively, increased grains as well, right? Reduced fat and cholesterol, reduced red meat. And what happened? Heart disease rates triple. And people say, oh, well, but deaths from heart disease actually peaked in the 60s, 70s, and then it started coming down. That is someone who is intentionally trying to mislead you with flawed statistics and misleading statistics, because we're not talking about deaths. We're talking about prevalence. We're talking about incidence. We're talking about how many new people every year are getting diagnosed with heart disease. What is the entire burden of the population that have heart disease? That they are both increasing year after year. Deaths from heart disease are coming down, but people also stopped smoking as well. They've seriously reduced the amount of smoking. But the Inuit have lower rates of heart disease and deaths from heart disease. They start smoking on average at 8 years old, but they eat a high-fat diet. And this is actually mixed in with the population of people that aren't doing a traditional diet as well. When you're only looking at the ones doing a traditional diet, they don't really get heart disease to speak of at all, even though they smoke from 8 years old, right? They have much lower rates. In fact, there was a study in 1992 looking at the Canadian Inuit, and they're saying, hey, these guys eat a whole bunch of fat. They're smoking from an early age, but they have relatively low heart disease rates. compared to other Canadians. So maybe they have genetic protections against this. They checked it. They looked at 5 different genetic markers that would predispose you or protect you from heart disease. They had all the bad ones. They had all the ones that would predispose you for getting heart disease, right? And not protect them. They're like, okay, we don't know what the hell's going on here, because they're doing everything wrong, and they're actually genetically predisposed to get heart disease. So we don't know what the hell's happening here. So liars and people intentionally trying to mislead you and sell an ideology will try to say that heart disease, deaths from heart disease, cardiovascular disease, has actually gone down, peaked in the 60s. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about incidence. We're talking about prevalence. We're talking about how many people have heart disease, because, again, smoking came down. That helped a lot with the death rate. But you know what also helped with the death rate? Triple bypass surgeries, stents, all the different sorts of medications and treatments that we have intervening. We can put in, TPA. We have someone that comes in with a heart attack. We can return circulation to that heart, so that heart muscle doesn't die. So they're much less likely to die from that heart attack, right? But more people are having heart attacks. They don't tell you that. They're just not dying from those heart attacks. People are more likely to have a first heart attack and survive than before, right? They're just more likely to survive them. And so, if anyone says that, you know that they are full of shit and a liar, and are trying to mislead you. And so you cannot trust a word that they say. Maybe they've just heard that, but this is a professional, and they're touting themselves as someone who really knows what they're talking about, and they're trying to feed you that line of garbage. Well, either they're just very wrong and they don't know the literature, so they're ignorant and they just can't trust anything they say, or they're intentionally trying to mislead you, right? There's 3 kinds of lies, right? Lies, damn lies, and statistics. So this is a lie of statistics. So they're trying to mislead you and take you down a different track by telling you what they want you to know about, but not actually answer your question, which is prevalence, rates, incidence of heart disease, heart attacks. They say, oh, well, deaths from heart attacks actually gone down. Not what I said, not what I asked. So, not relevant, right? And you're trying, it's a red herring. You're trying to lead people down a side path. So it's something that people should be very, very mindful of. And so, if we're not worried about cholesterol, why are we taking cholesterol medications, especially when those cholesterol medications can cause such serious and debilitating issues such as Alzheimer's, right? Not a great idea. Not a great idea to be taking medications that you don't need to take. So I'm not telling you or your husband to come off any medications. I'm just telling you the facts. And those are some studies, and you should, talk to your doctor and do what you will. But I would still eat as close to a meat only diet as you can. Substitute eggs if you can't do meat, and really get away from the carbs, sugar, and seed oils. And good luck to you. Super chat from Kip. Thank you very much. Funny thing is, my daughter doesn't know I've gone carnivore the last 4 weeks now instead of keto. Yeah. So, yeah, that's funny. And this is on Kip when he earlier said that, he was talking about his daughter. I was talking to a nutritionist, said that keto was a killer. So, yeah, that's funny. But you know what, the best thing to do is, the best revenge is a good life, right? So you're eating in this way, and you're going to get healthier, and you're going to do better, and your daughter's and this is going to be apparent, to your daughter and to everyone else, and just be like, hey, look, it doesn't matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter how brilliant your theory is. If it doesn't agree with the experiment, it's wrong. Your nutritionist said that this was going to kill me, this was going to make me sick, this was going to make me get worse. All of my blood markers, all of my objective standards are all improving. I'm getting better. They're wrong. That's all there is to it. Super chat from something that I have no idea how to pronounce. Thank you very much for that. Carnivore since May 1st, I'm going to say 70-30-ish. I'm going to assume that's 70% calories from fat, 30 from protein, 3 meals a day. I consume a ton of salt. Can you talk about postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome? POTS is what there's other sorts of POTS as well. And carnivore POTS is improving, but still kicking my ass. So, well, it's not something that I know of any studies one way or the other. Such, a lot of studies that we talk about, we have to sort of glean from things that are sort of approaching carnivore, like keto, or the elemental diet stuff, or reducing carbs and fiber and all that sort of stuff with Crohn's. But I don't know of any with POTS. As far as salt is concerned, I don't think you need to add a ton of salt. I think you just salt to taste. If you're drinking water to thirst, that usually balances themselves out. If you're not eating a bunch of sugar and fructose, then salt isn't as much of a problem as people make it out to be. I just don't think you really need it. I don't really use much salt at all, and I use less and less salt as I go. I've always felt fine. There are a lot of long-term carnivores that actually think that you really shouldn't use salt, and there's actually sort of like a drug, makes you hungry, makes you eat more, makes you, do different things that you're not supposed to do, and aren't good for you. And so, I wouldn't dismiss that so easily, because these people have been doing this stuff for 20 years plus. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, some of these people. And some of them use salt, some of them don't. And some of them who don't say, hey, I feel much better now that I don't. So it's something that you should try for yourself. And, if you want to eat less salt, you want to try less salt, and you feel good with that, great. I don't think you should have a ton of salt. I think, because, if you're just salting to taste, then that's relative to you. That's just like, oh yeah, I'm just salting as much as my body's telling me to. So that's fine. If you're saying a ton, then you're noticing this is a lot of salt. So, maybe that's a bit more than your body wants. Maybe that's a bit past where you want to go. I certainly wouldn't add salt into water and drink it. I don't think that's something you need to do. Partial orthostatic hypotension, tachycardia syndrome. So what that is just basically you're getting a fast heart rate in different, sitting, standing, sort of changes your heart rate, basically sitting, laying, standing. I don't know. I don't have any definitive information on that for you, unfortunately. But I can tell you that if it's improving, then that's a good sign that it will keep improving. There are some of these things that take a long time in order to resolve. But if it's improving, that's a good sign that it's going to continue to improve. So just do what you need to do to sort of, keep you even and survive, and let your body heal. And that's what I would do. And just give it more time. Hopefully this resolves all the way. I don't know if it's going to 100%. I would cut out the salt, or at least reduce the salt down to a more normal level that you aren't considering it's a ton. Just have just salt to taste. Don't add anything past that. And then just eat beef and water, and you'll give your body the best chance that it has to recover from whatever you're going through that can be recovered from. And that's what I would do. So Ford, thank you very much for the super chat. Is bacon okay? I feel like it is the only way for me to get enough fat. Even added butter to ribeyes isn't enough. Very little fat even on ribeyes here. I don't, you might be in, I don't know where you are, but in Australia, certainly they trim the hell out of these things. And so they're just much less fat. And so I add butter to my ribeyes. Look, bacon's great in a lot of ways. Some of the pigs, a lot of the pigs, most of the pigs are being fed crap. They're being fed soy and corn and other sorts of seed oily sort of things, and they get a lot of linoleic acid in their fat. You don't want that, because that stays in your body for a long time, right? So it's not good for you. But if you're able to get bacon, from like a pasture raised animal that's not being fed a whole bunch of soy, corn crap, that's probably better. Try to get a bacon that's not sugar cured, doesn't have a bunch of additives, anything like that. Sometimes better to get pork bellies, right? Which is just the cut of bacon, the fatty, streaky bacon, and high fat content, obviously, but it just doesn't have like the sugary cure or anything like that. It's just its own meat. So you put a bit of salt on that or whatever, and you cook it up. Slow cook it. The slower you cook pork, the better it tastes. And that goes for bacon and pork bellies especially as well. It just does. It's so much different. Just cook it very slow. Don't flash fry these things. My mouth is actually watering right now thinking about it. The slower you cook that, the bacon and the pork bellies, the better they will taste. They almost caramelize and just turn into just amazing. So my grandmother taught me that, and she was eating bacon for 9 decades before she passed away. And so I would take that I would take that one to the bank. So Tina's Tools, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Been on carnivore diet for 17 months. Awesome. And I've been experiencing semi-consciousness at night, but feel good during the day. My eyes show lack of sleep and wondering if I should be concerned. So I guess I don't really know exactly what you mean by semi-consciousness at night. I'm assuming you don't mean while you're asleep, because you want to be asleep while you're unconscious when you're at night. So during the day you feel good. Maybe towards the evenings you start slowing down. That's pretty normal. Semi-conscious, maybe you're seeing that you're not really sleeping well. Eyes show lack of sleep. So if you're talking about not really getting great quality sleep, and you're sort of waking up, things like that, you need to optimize your sleep experience, right? So you need to turn off the lights, turn down the lights an hour before you want to be asleep. Light coming into our eyes is triggering our brain to say, wake up, it's daytime, make cortisol, keep you awake, keep everything going, right? It's daytime, we got daylight, we need to go hunt things and kill things. Then when those lights come down, you're using those little blue blocking glasses. Those actually work great. I mean, I get super tired. I put those things on and I instantly just start getting very tired, and I sleep very well as a result of that. I'm an affiliate with Bond Charge. They're a local company here in Perth. People may know them from other people. They sponsor a lot of big name people, and they're great. I mean, I can tell you that they really work really well. They work very well for me. And so, but you don't need to buy anything special. You just need to turn off the lights, get away from screens, get off your computer, get off the television, get off your phone, read a book in low light, listen to music or classical music or something calming and relaxing. Listen to a book on tape, something like that. But do something, or spend time with people, even better, and do so in a sort of low light, quiet environment. And you will sleep better. You will start getting a little better. If you're having trouble and other things, you could even take like low dose melatonin. That's over the counter in most countries. Otherwise it's prescription. So you need to talk to your doctor about whether that's appropriate for you. And get a sleep mask. Those are great. Even just a little bit of light, through a window, or just the charge light on your phone, that can actually disrupt your sleep, and you won't sleep as well. So you get a sleep mask, one of these things, is neoprene one with a ridge around it, so you can open your eyes and look around. It's just pitch black. This is triggering your brain. Hey, it's nighttime, sleep. And so you will actually get very good sleep, and you will sleep until your body doesn't need sleep anymore, or until your alarm clock comes, usually when your alarm clock comes, unfortunately. But, like today, I had my alarm clock set and I woke up, half an hour before it, because I had such good quality sleep. I didn't need an alarm clock to wake up. So those are really important, and so food is going to be great. That's going to help in a lot of ways. You can also make sure you're eating in the evening, eating your evening meal, and eat meat until it stops tasting good. Fatty meat until it stops tasting good. And you'll find that makes you much more tired. You just naturally get into a lethargic state. You get a lot of your blood going to your intestines. That's blood that's not available for your brain and your muscles. So your body just starts slowing down. You go into the parasympathetic system, and you start going into a rest and digest mode, as opposed to a get up and run and hunt mode. And you'll feel naturally lethargic. This is why I tend not to eat during the day, because I'll just get lethargic during the day. I don't want to do that. I've got things to do. But if you eat at night, big fatty meal at night, you'll naturally feel lethargic. You'll naturally want to go to bed. So there's a lot of things that you can do to optimize your sleep. And, and so you should do that and make sure that you're getting enough sleep and enough good quality sleep. Diet can only do so much, but you need sleep. You have to have sleep. People that get less than 6 hours of sleep a night on average are 6 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's. is association, not necessarily causation. But when we are asleep and our neurons are off, they are repairing themselves. They're regrowing. They're recycling the neurotransmitters that are actually toxic to our neurons, which is a terrible design. So these transmitters, they break down and degrade. Those degradation products, breakdown products, are actually bad for you. They can build up and become toxic. So you have to sleep in order to clear these things and recycle these things and repair these things. And that's very, very important. So you need good quality sleep on top of the diet as well. Sam NKC1, thank you very much for the super chat. Any difference between gluconeogenesis from fat and protein and carb ingested glucose? Yeah, you won't get gluconeogenesis from carb ingested glucose. You'll shut down gluconeogenesis. You'll raise your insulin, and that will oppose glucagon, and you'll stop all the different processes that allow you to create energy and glucose from fat and protein. Insulin will block lipolysis, blocks proteolysis, right? So it blocks the breakdown and degradation of fat and protein in the first place. And you can't even use them as ketones, right? Because it blocks that process. You get a bit through. Generally, you'll have like a bit of ketones through at all times, but certainly not enough for our optimal body demands. That's why you don't want to eat glucose. That's why you don't want to eat sugar, because you don't want to raise your insulin. You don't want to suppress your body's normal hormonal functioning. So, you shut all that process down. Basically, in layman's terms, insulin forces energy into cells. It doesn't allow it to come out of cells. So as soon as you eat carbohydrates, your insulin goes up. You have locked down all the fat cells in your body. That's it. They're not gonna be able to. You're not gonna be able to access them and utilize them. You're not gonna be able to use the fat and reduce the amount of excess fat that you have. But more importantly, you're not gonna be able to use it as energy. So you're gonna feel like crap, and you're gonna have to eat more carbohydrates in order to bolster your blood sugar, right? And you just play this game. You go into toxic levels, suboptimal levels, toxic levels, suboptimal levels, toxic levels, suboptimal levels. Not a great pattern to be in. You want to be here. You want to be right in that sweet zone, that Goldilocks area the whole time, right? And when you do that and your insulin is down and your leptin is not being blocked at the level of the hypothalamus by insulin and by fructose, you're going to eat to a normal capacity. You're not going to overeat, and you're not going to upset all these other sort of regulations. So you're going to optimize your hormones. You're not going to block your growth hormone secretion. You're not going to block your growth hormone action. So you're going to have a better physiological health long-term as a result of having more optimized hormones as well, like your growth hormone, like testosterone in men, like estrogen in women. Women make testosterone first. That testosterone is then converted into estrogen in the ovaries. And if your insulin is up, insulin blocks the conversion of testosterone into estrogen in the ovaries. So women will have too high testosterone, too little cholesterol, right? Or sorry, too little estrogen, Jesus. Too high testosterone, too little estrogen. And you can get serious issues for that. You can get disruptions to your cycle. You can get polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is the number one leading cause of women-driven infertility in certainly the Western world. And so these are very serious issues. It's not just blood sugar. There are so many downstream effects from eating any exogenous carbohydrates. It's really not what you want to do. I mean, can you have some? Sometimes, yeah, your body can deal with that fine. We're probably evolved sometimes eating fruit seasonally. They were available for 2 weeks, and we had that fructose and those carbs and that and raising our insulin, blocking our leptin, causing us, eat this, so that we fatten up and can survive the winter. That's why bears do it. But bears mostly eat animals, right? Fish and children, things like that. So, they just joking. They will eat children though if they see them and are hungry. But they that's how that works. But the vast majority of the time, fruit's not available, right? And during the ice ages, it was never available in the majority of the world. right? So, you know, the majority of animals in the world were not eating fruit. The majority of people in the world were not eating fruit for the majority of the time, right? So, you know, you don't need that crap anyway. And Ken, thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. What the hell does that mean? That makes sense. Okay. Sorry, just looking at that. Okay. So let's see, try to see if I find some other questions here. Okay, here we go. Here's one from Anne. Sorry, I just had to work my way through the the super chats, but do still put normal questions out there as well. Question from Anne. 3 sons and I are 100% carnivore, beef, lamb, eggs, mackerel only. Cool. Mackerel tastes good. For 5 months. 1 son and I have both developed proteinuria, frothy, smelly urine, confirmed on urinalysis strips. Dehydration? Maybe. You know, if it's not causing a disease state, though, and you're well otherwise, then that's fine. You know, there are other things that can cause proteinuria. And so if you're feeling a bit unwell in some ways, you know, should definitely get a once over by your doctor. If you're feeling well, I wouldn't worry too much about it. For some damn reason, a lot of people get this on like pork. They have like pork shoulders or something like that. And those get very, very bad smelling urine, very frothy and things like that as well. So something weird going on is there as well. So, you know, see if that's something that comes up with you. But yeah, try drinking more water. But if you're feeling good, you should be fine. And but more water is generally good. And so yeah, that wouldn't be a bad thing. So yeah, you know, give that a try. Oh, sorry. Okay. Super chat from Barbie. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the advice in the video. You discussed fatigue possibly getting caused by dehydration. Absolutely. Yeah. You said you had a prep week ahead of games, etc. I have upped my water intake and feel so much better all day. Any more on this? That's awesome. Yeah. Well, so what Barbie's referring to there is I noticed that in my rugby days, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was coming in late to the season, so I had missed really about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I missed basically the first month of the season, the preseason, getting ready, and so I came in a week before our first game, and so, you know, I was like, okay, I'm not in shape. I haven't been practicing for the last month like everyone else, so, you know, well, I'm just going to work very hard, but you know what I can do is I can at least make sure that I'm hydrated. And so I was just on top of it. I had a gallon water jug, and I would fill it up twice a day. I drink 2 gallons a day, so 7.8 or 7.6 liters, and that's a lot. And sometimes maybe a bit more, but I would at least get 2 gallons. And you know, I did that for the whole week before leading up to the games. And I felt great. I had a great time during the game. I didn't feel like I was out of shape. I didn't feel fatigued at all. I didn't feel, oh my God, you know, dying. I felt great. So then I was just like, whoa, wow, I'm in better shape than I thought I was. Wow, look at me, I'm awesome. And so I wasn't as severe with myself and as on it with the water the next week. And so I was only drinking a gallon, but I did consistently drink a gallon. So for 3.8 liters of water a day. And the next week now I've got, 2 weeks and a game of fitness under my belt, and I felt horrible. I just felt absolutely awful. I was just absolutely just a wreck. And I was just like, okay, I'm going back up to drinking water. Started drinking more water again, felt great again. So that was my personal experience with that. And that's something that I've noticed with people, just getting enough water for you. And if you're feeling a bit tired or run down, maybe ask yourself, maybe try increasing the water and see how you go. So that's something that a lot of people will see. And you may think that you're getting enough water, you're getting the same amount of water you always were, maybe even a little more. But if you're tired, if there's some sort of issue, that's part of the algorithm to run through to troubleshoot. And so just try increasing your water and see how you go. And a lot of people find that it does help, just like Barbie. So that's great. Great to hear that you've done better with that. So thank you very much for sharing. And Raul, thank you very much for the super chat. It's very kind of you. Okay. So a question from Anne. Only other symptom are sore left kidney, occasionally having to urinate during the night once or twice. Don't eat pork. If damage from dehydration, will the proteinuria heal with more water? Well, if it is dehydration, then yes, things will get better with water. If there's something else triggering the proteinuria, then it's something else, and it may not get better with just a bit more water. Sore left kidney, that's, well, usually you feel it in the back, sort of just underneath the rib cage there. And it's hard to say if that pain is sort of radiating from that down sort of around the front to the inner part of the sort of the groin area, loin to groin, sort of that distribution there. That could be something's blocked up, like a kidney stone or something like that. Some people do have down the road, like oxalate dumping, things like that they can actually get a buildup of calcium oxalate stones, and can get sort of problems there. So something to keep in mind. That again is also, going to be helped with a lot more water. You try to flush these things out. If they're small enough, they'll pass through. If they're not, you'll know about it because it'll start hurting a lot. And having that sort of distribution down and in a periodic sort of way. So you'll get this big wave of crashing pain, and then it'll sort of subside. Oh, thank God. And all of a sudden it'll come on again, sort of like contractions. And a lot of women actually say that kidney stones are worse than contractions in childbirth. So hopefully you don't have that, but it can happen even down the road from this sort of just your body clearing out all these oxalates that have been sort of stored up for years and decades. But yeah, it's not going to hurt by drinking more water. And if you're well otherwise, not too much of a concern. If you are still having issues or there's blood in your urine, then you definitely want to get checked out by your doctor, because that's not, that could be like something like kidney stones or something like that. So I would just keep an eye on that. Drink more water, see how you go. Any issues, just see your doctor. Hello to you. Thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for being here. I really do appreciate you guys coming on. Hopefully this is helpful to people. I'll probably go for another 10 minutes or so. So try to get in your questions now and try to go, and it'll be 3 hours. I think that's probably more than enough for people to listen to me sort of jabber on. Super chat from Raul. Thank you very much. Where do you get your meat in Perth? I normally go to Costco, just because it's convenient. I love Costco. I grew up next to the first Costco, so I'm a big fan. I do not own stock in Costco. I have no financial conflicts of interest. I just like Costco. I think they're a great store. So, and they have good quality meat. You get it in bulk, and the more bulk you can get like a case of beef or a case of meat or whatever of the big primal cuts. It's even cheaper. Right, so you get the whole big thing that you cut up into steaks yourself. They literally double the price just for cutting it up into steaks for you. No thanks. I have a knife. I can do that myself. And so you get that in the whole loin. And if you get a number of those, like in a case, then it's even cheaper. Right, so it just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as you go. And then you have to know what to do with them. Wet aging them, dry aging them, doing all these sorts of things. So you don't have spoilage. I never get spoilage because I do that, and I have videos on that, probably in the Carnivore Essentials one, and the sort of how to do carnivore, whatever the hell ones in there on how to sort of how I prepare my steaks and things like that. I mostly go to Costco, also go to the Beef Shed, which is great. They have just a ton of meat and a ton of cuts of meat in the big primal cuts, and a lot of grass-fed and finished meat as well. That actually is a very good price. So those are my two main ones. Troy's Butcher as well. He's called like the Secret Butcher. He's awesome. He's a really cool guy. I've talked to him a lot about carnivore. He was all for it. And really nice guy. I would go to him for a long time. He used to make special mince for me, like 50-50 fat and meat mince, which was great. I should probably go back to him as well, but I normally just get just ribeyes and New York strips from Costco, and sometimes I go to the Beef Shed. So it's just very convenient because I can get 6 weeks of meat in one go, and then I don't have to worry about shopping for 2 months. It's great. Let's see there. Oh, it just reloads so funny. It was a super chat from Health Life. Thank you very much for that. In my late 40s, low carb all my life. Great. That's really good to naturally do that. Drink, snack occasionally. Keto for 3 years. Feeling great, but feel strong heartbeats occasionally. Diet or something else. Yeah, some people do experience that. Just these big, strong, heavy heartbeats. I noticed it as well. But thankfully, I was a doctor at this point, and so I just sort of was listening. I was, ooh, that's kind of freaky. It actually kept me up at night. It was so loud in my ears that it was hard for me to go to sleep, which was sort of concerning. But I listened to it, paid attention, timed it. It was a normal rate. It was a normal rhythm. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't know why the hell this is happening, but it's not an arrhythmia anyway. It's not something that I think is a problem. Your cardiac myocytes, your heart muscles, they prefer, like your brain, to run on ketones. They don't always get the chance to, but they prefer to. And so I think it's probably something to do with that when you're sort of getting more ketones up, people sort of experience this sort of 3 or so days into going carnivore or heavy keto. And what are you doing when you're in sort of day, hour sort of 60 or 72 into not having carbohydrates, into a fast, right? Your ketone levels, are going to be peaked out generally around then. And it's going to be available to your heart. Now your heart's just running on rocket fuel, where it's been on, just low grade diesel its whole life. And it's just all of a sudden just boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So I think it's probably something to do with that. I have no evidence for that. That's purely my supposition. But, when people go and get ECGs, EKGs, they find there's no arrhythmias, there's no problem, there's no nothing. And you're getting that heavy heartbeat, and then eventually goes away. I think that's probably what it is. Your body's getting used to, your heart's getting used to running on ketones, which it prefers. And that seems to be what people notice, right? Because after a couple of days, they notice that big, heavy heartbeat. And then if they eat carbohydrates, it goes away. Well, funny enough, your ketones go down and get suppressed when you eat carbohydrates, right? And it takes a couple of days for those to come back up. So that would fit that pattern anyway. So I'm that's my suspicion anyway of what's going on there. So as long as your rate is normal, you're not going too fast or too slow, and there's a normal rhythm, a normal pattern to it, it should be fine. If you're concerned, just go to the doctor, get an ECG, EKG, depending on the part of the world you're in. It looks like you're in Australia, so that'd be ECG. Same thing. It's just getting an electrical tracing of the heart, and you'll see. And if there's something weird there, then that'll pick that up. And if not, then not. And don't worry about it. It'll settle down. Question from Teddy Honeybunch. All right. Question: my hemoglobin is low from chemo. I'm sorry that you're having to go through that. Stable at 10.6-ish. Okay. But after a procedure, it went down to 9.3. Ooh, not so fun. Also, iron level is borderline low. Doctor told me to take an iron supplement. Any tips for me? Red meat and liver, especially raw liver. I would eat that. I mean, I don't think you need to go just completely ape on the liver. Still want to sort of keep it in proportion, but I think you should include that in your diet. There's a lot of very available heme iron in liver and meat, and that's the most bioavailable form of iron. So that's the best iron supplement you're going to get is beef and liver, and so that's what I would eat. And I would absolutely go 100% carnivore. I would take every single carbohydrate that you've ever known out of your system, out of your body, and same with any seed oil and any cooking oil or anything like that. There are studies showing, there are tons of studies, depending on the type of cancer you have, of ketogenic metabolic therapy. So being in a ketotic state, ketogenic state, dietary ketogenesis, that this can help in a number of different cancers. And for many reasons, and getting your glucose ketone index down under 2 and even under 1 if possible. And you look up GKI and Thomas Seyfried, Seyfried, just pop that into Google Scholar, and you'll find papers on GKI and how to calculate it and what that means, and how to use that in this setting. There are a number of studies in humans and a plethora in animals, showing that ketogenic metabolic therapy is really beneficial for cancer, depending on the cancer, but really most cancers. Not all cancers have been studied with this, but for the ones that have come out, there are very positive results, some sort of middling results, and those are the ones you'll see that they're eating carbs up to 50 grams a day or 20 grams a day. Don't eat any carbs. Don't eat any carbs at all. Why do we take a PET scan? We put in radioactive, radio opaque glucose molecules, inject that into people, and then we see where they go. We see what is taking up a whole bunch of glucose, what is highly metabolically active, what loves glucose. Cancers love glucose because cancer cells require 400 times the amount of glucose that other cells do, right? So they'll show up on a PET scan. That's why we inject people with glucose for a PET scan, right? And it shows up, right? So what you can do is you can limit that, and you can stop raising up your blood sugar and giving more substrate for the cancers to run on. Also, glutamine is another one that cancers can run on. Some cancers run on more glucose than glutamine, some vice versa. And so, like GBM, glioblastoma, brain cancers, right? So that's the most common primary brain cancer, is also most aggressive, and it is about 75% of its energy source comes from glutamine. And so 25% come from glucose. But either way, a ketogenic diet still shows benefit in humans and animals, right, to survival and outcomes. So that's important. And also, there was a study in 2019 and 2020 showing respectively that being on a ketogenic diet improves chemo and radiation sensitivity of cancer cells, so it makes the cancer cells more susceptible to chemo and radiation, and it also protects your cells and makes them be able to weather the radiation better. So that's a benefit as well. So if you're going through chemo and radiation, this is going to be a good idea as well, for a lot of different reasons. There are many, many, many different reasons. I highly recommend you go and watch the interview I did with Professor Thomas Seyfried, Seyfried. Guy's brilliant, honestly. If all of his work he has well over 150 publications in the peer-reviewed literature on cancer biology and ketogenic metabolic therapy for cancer in animals and humans. And if this pans out the way I think it will, this guy's going to be up for a Nobel Prize and will deserve one either way. So look up that interview, and I have links to other talks of his and his websites and things like that. So there can be a lot more information there. So I would do that. Look up that interview that I've done with him. Oh goodness, gosh, why does it do this? For some reason, every time I try to scroll down on the questions, it just like jumps and starts and things like that. So that's really annoying. Okay, great. So super chat from Adam. Thank you very much. What could be causing low libido in my first month? Well, your body can just be changing in a lot of different ways. And there's a lot of other things that can be affecting your libido, just personal circumstances and, just your overall sort of happiness with your situation and your love life. I don't know if you have a partner or what's going on there, but obviously, your relationship with others is very important as well. And hormonally, you can get a bit of upset, but generally people find, it is the other way around. Our hormones start improving and optimizing, and you just become healthy, and your body says, great, time to have babies. You're healthy. You have enough resources to support more kids. So have more kids. And so people's libidos go up. Now that may not happen right away. Some people it does, but in the coming months it will. And so, just keep eating, meat and water, red meat and water, high fat. That's where your hormones come from. Not everybody knows this. The vast majority of your hormones are made from cholesterol. Vitamin D is made from cholesterol. Testosterone, estrogen, progestogens, cortisol, all your mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids made in your adrenals. These are all made from cholesterol. And when we were talking about adrenal fatigue earlier, Well, one thing that you can do to help support your adrenals, make sure you have enough cholesterol, right? So, that's what all these hormones are made from. And so if they're getting exhausted and you don't have enough of them, well, do you have enough of the substrate, of the building blocks of the cholesterol in the first place, right? So these are all very important things. And so your libido will get better from a physiological standpoint and from a hormonal standpoint, but your personal situation is important to optimize as well. Okay, I'm going to do one more question, and then we'll probably wrap it up here. Let me see. Oh gosh. Okay, so I got a super chat in that came in. I guess that answers that. So I'll do this one, and then we'll wrap up. So please don't put in another super chat in. I do feel obligated to answer them. I will answer them, but please don't take advantage of me because I do need to wrap up. But so hopefully we'll end with this one from Health Life. Thanks for the super chat. My 78-year-old stepdad had stage 4 glioblastoma last February. I'm very sorry to hear that. Given 6 to 12 months, that's pretty typical, unfortunately. He started keto and had conventional treatment. 17 months later, he's doing well. Oh, that's great. Says, never felt this good in 4 decades. That is wonderful. I am very happy to hear that for your stepdad. Keep going. Do not stop. There are case reports and case studies and case series in the literature from major institutions showing that people do improve with keto. I think they'll probably improve better on carnivore, but at least doing 100% keto, no carbs at all, no sugar at all, no seed oils at all, no artificial sweeteners at all, you're gonna do much better. I think you'll do best on carnivore, and with potentially with periods of fasting and things like that, to make sure that your GKI stays down. I think, and just having periods without, taking in glutamine as well might be a good idea. There's no studies that I know of that show that, but just seeing that these things run 75% of their energy that comes from glutamine might be a good idea to just fast a couple days a week and then refeed and then fast, but having periods where you have no glucose or glutamine coming in at all. I would do that personally is where I'm going with that. But that's just something that I would do personally. So that's fantastic. That he's feeling better and doing better, and and that's so important. But what I was saying with the case studies and case series, there was a number of people that were doing really well, kept their GKI down through fasting and diet, and they did very well. And they kept their GKI under 2, sometimes under 1. They were just doing really well. Had no progression of their disease. In fact, a lot of cases their tumors shrank down, which was amazing. And in a couple of these studies or the case reports that are published, they had no disease while their GKI was below 2, and then they just said, "Oh, I can't really do this anymore. I'm just sick of it." And their GKI starts going up, and then their cancer starts growing again, and start feeding it again, and it comes back. It wasn't all the way gone, and so it's something that you need to keep up. So your stepdad should just think about this. This is what I do now. This is how I'm going to live my life, and this is just what I'm going to do. I eat this way. This is the way I eat. I don't eat any other way. Just like people who don't drink, they don't drink. People who don't do drugs. It's very, if drugs are popular, you're still not weird for not doing drugs. And people think it's just like, oh, well, I don't do heroin. Like, you're not supposed to do heroin, but you say that, and you're like, wait, what? You don't do meth? Like, wait, oh, hold on a second. You're just not going to do meth just the rest of your life? No, I'm not. I'm just not going to do any of that stuff because I don't want to do it. I don't ever want to do it. I don't ever want to eat carbs. I don't ever want to eat sugar. I don't ever want to eat seed oils. I don't ever want to eat anything that's bad for me. I don't care how nummy it tastes. I don't care how good heroin feels. I don't care how awesome meth is. It's not in my, at any level. I have no interest in any of this sort of stuff. And so that's where he needs to get, and he needs to get there. Or this is just like, that stuff's out for me. That's just cancer fuel, so I'm not going to eat that crap. I'm not going to feed my cancer. I'm going to feed me. So I'm going to eat meat. I'm going to drink water. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to enjoy my life, enjoy my kids, enjoy my grandkids. And that's it. You either want to feed you or feed your cancer. You could do both, but I'd rather just stick to feeding me. So I think that's great. I'm really happy to hear that he's doing well and feeling so good. And I would just encourage him to keep up the good work and to keep going. And to everyone else, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys coming on here. We had really good numbers. We had sort of, it's now sort of 620. We had like over 700 for a lot of that. And I really appreciate you guys coming on. I hope that was interesting, educational, or at least entertaining in some regard. And I really appreciate everybody coming on. I don't know where everyone's coming in from, probably a new group of people, but if people did like that, if they're not subscribed, if they could subscribe, we could see more of these, and leave a comment. Let us know where you're coming in from, what you thought of the chat, if there's a certain point that you liked as well. You can also put a timestamp and say this was a good point here or there or whatever, and direct other people. Rick, good to see you. And it also helps, if you put in a comment, if you hit the like button, that draws more people into the live. I should have said that at the beginning, but it also, if you put in a comment, you put in a like, this helps the algorithm go out to more people, and so more people can see it. And so that'll be great. So I'm going to be doing this sort of same bat time, same bat channel every week. So Friday mornings for me, 9 a.m. in Perth, which would be 6 p.m. Thursdays in west coast of the U.S., 9 p.m. on the East Coast, probably midnight on the East Coast. So Rick, thank you very much for staying up. It's good to see you there. And so great. Awesome. And great. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Lovely to see you all. Great session. Thank you for all the questions and the super chats. Very kind of you. And I will see you next time. I'm doing another live tomorrow with Sean White and Kip and Dave Mack, and possibly another friend will join us, and we're sort of answering other questions. And then might be doing another live with my friend Carrie Mann from Homestead How, which is a great channel. People that don't know that, they should check that out. It's all about homesteading and things like that. But he got into carnivore recently, sort of 120-ish days ago, completely reversed so many of his issues, lost a bunch of weight, helped his health issues. His daughter healed very serious skin condition that she had. His wife's on it now, and she's doing great too. And so, we did a live last week, and some episodes, people should watch those. Those were very good. And so we're going to be doing another one. So people have sent in more challenges of, wait, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And we'll be addressing those as well on a live stream format as well. So I'll be announcing that in the next couple of days. And so I'll put a community sort of post on the channel as well, advertising that, letting you guys know exactly when we're going to do that. And so bring your questions then. So we'll see you tomorrow, sometime during the week with Carrie, and then regularly on Fridays as well. So, or Thursday, Fridays, depending on where you are. And great. Awesome. Love you guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And hopefully that was helpful. And share this around with people if you think it would help them. Thanks a lot. See you, everyone.